Yeah. Yeah, no, that's very I did. Yeah, that's good.
Nobody wants to sit with you?
Yes, I did. Again? No. Yeah, I did. I'm sorry. I pocket dialed you. I did.
Okay. Good.
Hey, Ken. Pam, you want to talk? Did you sign up? Neil, come here. Pam wants to talk on the voucher deal. How do we do that?
Somebody's got to call her out. It's not, or she could talk in citizen forum.
Well,
She's talking citizens forum.
Is there a citizen's forum?
Yeah.
No, you can't talk about stuff. Yeah.
Will you tell her that? The girl with the glasses in the second row. Pam, next to Ramona Robert.
Good evening and welcome. Good evening and welcome to the Fort Smith City Board of Directors study session on this February 10th of 2026. Keep in mind these meetings are being recorded live for the benefit of our residents who cannot be with us in person this evening. This time we'll go right to the first item on the agenda. Mr. Deeman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. The first item tonight is a discussion requested by the board regarding funding for pet spay and new vouchers for 2026. The city funded a program of spay and neuter vouchers in 2024 and 2025. In both years, all funds appropriated for the program were spent, amounting to nearly $379,000 total. For 2026, funds for the program are not included in the 2026 budget, as staff work to present a balanced general fund operating budget. Already in 2026, the program has been missed and a number of residents have reached out to city directors inquiring about its funding. And with that introduction, I'll defer to the board's discussion on this item.
Okay, thank you very much. Director Rigo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'm just grateful to our colleagues for having the conversation tonight. I think it's obviously an important topic. We need to make sure that, in my opinion at least, some amount of funding gets restored for this very important effort. I know, if I understood correctly, and Josh, maybe clarify if I'm off base, I think it's based on up there, that we appropriated around $150,000 last year that expired come September. Of course, it started at the beginning of the year. But I would think potentially we could start the conversation around appropriating $150,000 for the balance of this year moving forward, and see how far that gets us into the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Good.
Thank you, Mayor. I concur with Vice Mayor Rigo. You know, instead of just partial funding for the remaining of the year, I think we need to pick back up where we left off. And I'd like to take this opportunity to say publicly, you know, when we were talking about budget, I know we wanted to present a balanced budget, but because we know how politics work and we know how the needs of the community are, we'll be right back here, and here we are.
Director Christina Savage.
My understanding was that this was included in the budget, and you know, we all got that sheet and it had a yes next to it or no, and Director Rigo asked if it has a no by it, does that mean it's not getting cut? And that's what Jeff confirmed, and I understand maybe Jeff was confused, but that's what my understanding was. This was included in the budget.
I'll say, I mean, Jeff wasn't confused. I mean, I understand the distinction here, but the memo at the top of that had a few items that were not included in the budget that were potential expenses, 3 or 4 of them, that we could add back into the budget in that section. Now down below, there were items that were proposed to be removed from the operating budget request, and so there were 2 different. I understand what you're referring to, and I understand the confusion, but the way it was presented was clear. Thank you.
Well, Director Rigo asked, if you go back and review the budget meeting, it's at the 4-hour and 55-minute mark. If it has a no by it, does that mean it's not getting cut? And you said correct. And so that's why my understanding was it was not getting cut. But either way, we're here. I think we need to get it on the agenda for a vote. Thank you.
Any other comments? Director Neil Martin.
I got one, Mayor.
Okay.
So when we passed a budget that was operationally balanced, the point was just that it was operationally balanced. So I think, I mean, ultimately if this goes and it goes to the board for a vote, you know, we'll have that vote. But, you know, we had a number of things that were excluded from that budget, a number of things. And if we're going to start looking at it now, we need to start looking at other things that were excluded from that budget and we need to determine, are those of a higher priority? But I mean, if we keep adding things throughout the year, we're not going to, obviously our budget won't get balanced. And so I think we need to take a look at this. I think this has been a good program for us, but is this our number one priority of all those things? I mean, we talked about police, fire, all those things. What does that look like to all those policemen and firemen? So I think we need to be cautious about what we do and really think that, make sure that we're doing the right thing here. But we could keep doing this all year and get to a point where where we were operationally balanced, we're not anymore. So that's my concern.
Okay, thank you. Director George Casavis.
Jeff, where does this funding come out of? What account?
This funding would come out of the general fund. We'd program it into the animal services program of the police department.
Because
because that's where we have an animal services program that's part of the police department because it funds the animal wardens and all of the operations of that.
Would it be funded the way that it's been funded in the years past?
Yes.
Yeah. But what I'm saying, Director Rigo, a couple of meetings ago said that when we were talking about paying for the installation of slides, we have plenty of money in the general fund. So watch the decision shouldn't be an issue, really.
That is the general fund reserve, yes. And when you're talking about capital expenditures, those are one-time expenses. This is an operating expense. It's a little different. You have to consider operating expenses year over year. I mean, I recognize we would consider them each year, but this would be an operating expense. But in terms of where do we get the dollars if we appropriate those, we get them from that general fund reserve balance.
But, I think in the long run, this is going to save us money. Don't you agree? Don't you think?
It certainly
Could
could.
be less dogs to pick up, less animals.
Yes.
Less dogs we've got to pay for to pound.
Yes, that is the long-term goal of the program.
Gavon, how many spay and neuters did y'all do with the vouchers last time? Or somebody, Pam? We did. How many vouchers? How many spay and neuters did y'all do with the vouchers? 13,000.
1,331.
I think, Josh, according to your records, how many did we?
So they had 22, 71, and 24, and I had 15, 23 for 25.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
No, I just gave you the number that
That you did, okay.
but that includes all the offices.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Director Kemp?
Thank you, Mayor. One, the board's gotten a lot of feedback on this issue. Obviously, it's a concern of residents, and the ones that I've talked to or communicated to said that 2 years was not going to yield any results, that this was going to be a multiple-year plan. Obviously, we don't want to give up on it. I was curious when I thought about it, and I've seen now that some of your colleagues have mentioned this, that $75,000 may not really accomplish something that you really want to do versus what $150,000 does. Jeff, could you speak to when we went through the balancing of that budget? If I'm recalling, it was what, $225,000 to the positive, or 200? Could you speak to when we balanced it, how much we went to the positive?
Well, when we ultimately approved the budget, it was $192 to the positive. So, I mean, that was after we had gone through and adjusted it for adding some programs back in and some expenses. But the net result was $192. But I'll say at the end of 2025, we ended the year with about $1.5 million ish that was unspent from the general fund. And so, and like I said, those were dollars that we anticipated that, even through the whole budget process, anticipated that those would be spent through 2025. We've allocated some of those dollars, but there are dollars that are available here. If we wanted to fund this program, we still would be operationally balanced.
Okay. The other question, that I had, and I think I communicated with Josh this afternoon, Josh B. Fink, and we're not seeing less police activity in this topic because I think we're still early in the program of this. In other words, it is not necessarily yielding less work for the police yet, but that is not a reason to, from what I've communicated with, even from the ones that are very much for this, that it's just going to take some time to see the results of it. And then ultimately, I guess, it's obviously not the topic of this hand, but it may be administration to look at what are other things we can explore as well as a board to help in this, and not just put all the weight of the success of this into this voucher program. Is there other things that we should be, that we can take action on that will help this cause as well? And then I guess another one is I'm confused on is I've heard about euthanasia, but we're not putting animals down, are we?
No.
Okay. So I've heard I don't understand how to get to the answers of that, but I'd like the administration to answer that, because
Well, I'll say, I mean, the city is not in charge of those policies in terms of how shelters operate, and I'll say that the city hasn't adopted a specific policy whether to enforce euthanasia rules or enforce not euthanasia or no-kill shelter type. And the city hasn't adopted that policy specifically. That has been up to the shelter operators to adopt their own operational policies, and the city hasn't weighed in on one side or the other. Now, when it gets to that point, I mean, I understand that the shelter, at least the Fort Smith Animal Haven, doesn't do euthanasia for space needs. I that's my understanding. I don't know if that's true or not, but I believe it is. I think they do euthanasia on instances where it's medically necessary and those types of things, but my understanding is that they don't do euthanasia for space needs.
I find myself that I'm for this cause, just that I also, in the spirit of what Director Martin is speaking to, I'm like Kim, you go through the work of balancing a budget, and I hear you say that we can do this and still maintain a balanced operational structure, which is why I can say I'm for it. But what are those other things that you all are feeling at an administrative level? And we need to have an honest study session about that. We need to talk about what are the tensions that our department heads are feeling so that we as a board can make good informed decisions, because this number relatively to the scope of everything else is lower, and so it's easier to talk about, and there's great community passion for it. But when we start talking about beyond this, if there's some sort of administrative consternation that's happening because of this, I think we need to hear about it and hear the priority order so that we can make an informed decision. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Director Christina Casavas.
Josh, I had requested some information by zip code. Were you able to get that? No. While Josh is heading up here, my thoughts on this are, when the community is reaching out to us overwhelmingly in favor, this was a highly utilized program, I'm surprised it was something that was cut from the budget, because I think we have other programs that are less utilized that probably could have been cut. This is something that we ran out of. It was heavily utilized, and something I think that the community has expressed they would like us to continue. But were you able to get?
Yeah, so about 34% of the people who received the voucher were from the 72901 zip code. So, and then it kind of breaks down from there. 72904 was second, and 72903.
72901 is what area of town would you say?
Typically the north side of town.
North side
mostly
of town.
North side,
okay.
yeah.
This numbers up there, Josh.
Yeah, that's from 25, but you average them both out. It's between 31 and 34% for 72901 in particular.
Director Kemp.
Thank you, Mayor. On that note, while we're talking about this, and I think we've talked about this a little bit, I think at the onset of this program, you and I talked about this, that there were a few non-Fort Smith residents that kind of got slid in through the storm of this getting picked up.
Yeah.
But that has ceased, correct?
Yeah, a lot of it was, it was trial and error in the beginning, figuring out a good system that was going to work long term. And I worked with, specifically with kitties and canines. 98% of the vouchers were ran through kitties and canines. So I asked them, what are some things that we can tighten up or make better? And one of those things was, figuring out income verification. One of those things was figuring out how to make it all one form rather than multiple forms. So. Yeah, we tightened it up over time. And there were, so like the first year, there were somewhere between, and to clarify, you have to put that you are from Fort Smith when you fill out the income verification. So in all honesty, people were, stretching the truth, saying they were from Fort Smith and not, actually, because you would look at their zip code and like, oh, that's actually not a Fort Smith zip code, or that's actually not a Fort Smith address. But that the first year we saw about 80 of those. The second year we saw 5. So it went down tremendously.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I want to make sure that we maintain that, because I don't want to see our residents not get the help that they can need, especially when we're saying, hey, this is what we're here for.
Right.
And then seeing that it's other people from other towns. I'd like to see us implement that. Thank you.
And kitties and canines, they would verify bills, a utilities bill or a driver's license, and they have to select which thing they're verifying at the time of the appointment. So.
Okay, thank you, Director Settle.
So, Josh, it brings me up a question since you brought it up. Do we not verify the person's address against their water biller to make sure that that's a citizen at the site?
That's a question for kitties and canines. That's the idea, is that they select, I picked utility bill, and I see this is, Joe Smith, and this is his address, and it matches.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like they're saying they do. They do.
We saw them.
Yeah.
We were telling people, give me your water bill, let me see your ID, which you'd be amazed at the number of people who don't have driver's license, but they have state issued IDs.
Right.
And we were like, let me see it, run out to your car, run out to your friend, run home, bring whatever you got, and let's see this, or we cannot do this.
Yeah.
So, we were right on top of that.
Yeah, and Madeline and I worked closely together on a lot of those things too. So
I would just say anecdotally, I receive fewer calls about stray animals. I see fewer stray animals, so I mean that's just what I'm noticing.
And then my other question, Jeff, is while Josh is doing a great job, he's the Director of Communications. And so my question is really Josh the long-term solution to do animal vouchers?
That is a good question. Like I said, the animal control services are run through the program that's housed in the police department. I think potentially long term we look to move the administration of this program to that program.
Okay, thank you. Director Rigo.
Thank you, Mayor. Real quick, I just want to mention, building on Jeff's comments about the finances at the end of the year, we did also receive an email from Andy on the 30th of January talking about the December sales tax report. And, one of the bullet points in there was that the last quarter of 2025 showed 1.7% growth in gross receipts over the prior year, and that our sales tax revenues ended better than they started in 2025. And then for us to bear in mind as well that this is a effort that if we invest in it appropriately on the front end, that level of investment is going to make a difference. That means we do not have to have that level of investment moving forward. So I don't think we're, stepping off into a, never-ending six-figure investment on spay and neuter vouchers. We're trying to address a problem and sort of reset at a more sustainable level, I would say. Thank you.
It appears that there's a sentiment to reinstate the program, so if there's a board member that would like to put it on the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. This time we will go to item number 2.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 2 is a discussion of a proposed ordinance establishing accountability, disclosure, and standards for third-party intermediaries in city transactions. The draft ordinance included in your agenda packet was proposed by Director Christina Katsavas, and the board placed this item on this evening's study session for discussion. Okay. Director Katsavas, I'll yield to you for introduction.
Jeff, did y'all run what I proposed to you through legal before you put it out? Because it was a little different than how I presented it.
We did. I mean,
I saw there was some question on there on page 15 about service agreements with engineers.
Yeah, I think that we'll need to, if the decision is to move forward with this, I think we still will want to vet the actual language of the ordinance through the city attorney to make sure that it's appropriate.
So what my intent was I feel like I identified a deficiency in our process. It's not typical or best practice for someone to materially influence a major capital project without a written agreement, and that's what we saw with American Resort Management in regard to the slides. I want to eliminate the conditions that have allowed this. When third parties provide estimates and cost assumptions that we rely on to make decisions, they're not required to stand behind the accuracy of that information. We open the door to cost overruns and potentially corruption. And so we have in the email from Rick Coleman to Carl Gefkin on July 1st, where he says ARM has negotiated even a better deal. We've got American Resort Management on the first page of the contract with Whitewater. But yet we had no written agreement with them to serve in that capacity. And this isn't, this is what brought this up for me. This isn't specific to that. It would, I think, keep us protected in other instances. So with that, if anyone has questions, I'm certainly open to amendments or altering the language any way we need to. But I think, when we look at types of agreements, there's professional service agreements, memorandum of understanding, consulting agreements. We shouldn't be doing anything on a handshake agreement. We should have documentation of everything. Thank you.
Director Settle.
Christina, could you give me an example of how this would be in the utilities department? Is there an example that you can think about how this would work in the utilities department?
What do you mean?
Besides this one instance, is there another instance? Is there a way that this is going to impact something in the utilities department? I'm trying to come up with another issue. It's because this is a one issue, one time, and we're going to put potential ordinance in there for one issue. Is this something that's a one-off, or is this something that you can see on an ongoing basis that's happened? And that's what I'm trying to understand. Is there something in the utilities department? Because most of our work has been in consent decree, water, and utilities. So I'm trying to say, can you give me an example of utility?
This wasn't a utility project.
But
I want to ensure this doesn't happen again. Whether it's utilities, IT, anywhere.
Can you give me an example of another opportunity that this could occur at?
No, but I couldn't have envisioned this 4 years ago.
I'm not getting upset. I'm asking a very simplistic question. Well, because what I heard from Jeff is it could go back to engineering agreements and engineering estimates.
If we have an agreement, then that's all. Then this is irrelevant. All this says is that if we're doing business with someone, we have to have a written agreement. No more backroom deals, no more handshake agreements. It has to be a written agreement, whether it's utilities, whether it's water slides, whether it's anything else. And that is not unreasonable. It is shocking to me that we didn't have one. I assumed, based on things like this, that American Resort Management was under some sort of contract to act as the capacity as a third-party broker.
Christina, I'm not getting upset. I'm just asking if
I am getting upset.
I'm asking if we have a real-world example of utilities. I just asked.
I do not have a real-world example of utilities. The real-world example I have is American Resort Management in relation to the slides. I never could have envisioned that happening. I don't know what could come up years down the road, but I want to make sure we're not in this situation again. Because what they did is, let's see, they estimated shipping at $100,000. Actuals were $229,000. I still can't get all the information I need on that. They negotiated pricing on our behalf. We're over several $1 million. This is something we should want to ensure never happens again.
Director Neil Martin.
Jeff, based on the definition here in this proposed ordinance, would ARM have been classified as a third-party intermediary? And maybe what Director Katsavas just shared with the Parrot Island expansion document kind of answers that question, but would we classify them as a third-party intermediary?
I think that's the intention.
But I'm just going back to that exact scenario. Did they meet the qualifications? I mean, was it the email that triggered it for us, or was there something else that triggered us to move forward with it?
From my recollection, that the email that itemized the different estimates for the different portions of the project, yep. I think that's what we based our decision on. I don't think there was any additional information or verification to that.
And we didn't do a due diligence on this. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments?
I have one.
Yes, Director George.
Do we have legal counsel here tonight?
I don't believe so. I don't think so.
Anybody a lawyer? No.
We can't do it.
Jeff, so did anybody specifically give ARM the authority to broker this deal with us?
No.
That you know of?
No.
Nothing in writing?
No, sir. I think they brought it. I think they learned of an opportunity that they brought to us. I think that's how this started.
Well, so technically, we have no recourse against ARM for anything, do we? Regardless of what they negotiated or whatever.
I don't believe so. But I think the intent of this is to put something in place where we would.
What was your question?
I think it makes sense to hold a company responsible for negotiating on our behalf.
If someone's negotiating on our behalf, we should know that what they're providing is accurate, and if they're not, we should have some sort of legal recourse.
That's just good business sense.
We have no legal recourse. If I'm doing business and someone says, I'm going to broker a deal for you to do, X, Y, and Z, I'm going to say, I want that in writing. I'm not going to hand over money without having something in writing. I mean, that's just basic business 101. And it surprised me we didn't. I assumed we had that. I assumed by having American Resort Management on here that they were under some sort of contract to serve in that capacity.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, I want to publicly and officially ask that we have ARM, the representatives, come here and talk to us about this deal. I think we deserve some answers and some questions to ask them.
Okay. I mean, I can.
How do we want to do it? Do I need a second, or do I need to what?
That would be helpful. Yes.
For you to contact them and say that do you have to say the board or somebody on the board has requested do y'all come in person?
I imagine they're watching this telecast right now. Yes.
Does our service agreement not allow for that?
Certainly it does.
I mean, I think that's just a request that you can make. I don't think that's something we have to vote on, is it? I mean, per the service agreement.
Well, that's my request. I think we all have questions to ask. And I just want somebody that was involved in this that has the answers to tell us what happened. That's all.
We can certainly do that. And I'll just reiterate what happened was they provided us an estimate based on an email that we took as a legitimate estimate.
Yeah, but Jeff, these slides are shipped overseas from the correct?
No, they weren't.
Well,
they came from overseas.
They came from Turkey. They came from Turkey is where they came from.
Okay, well, Kevin, you knowledge, what happened to the original buyers?
They backed out.
Why?
I do not know. Because
of the lawsuit, the patent infringement?
No, that's been taken care of. We got new slides to offset that.
Okay, so who at ARM contacted the city about these slides?
The president of ARM, Rick Coleman, who signed the. I mean,
and he called up here and says, "Hey, we got this great deal."
You've seen the email. That email is what started this.
I've never seen something that's so simple as buying something and turn into a nuclear disaster. I've never seen this. I'm done.
Okay, Director Good. I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Director Kemp, you recognize.
Thank you. I think the board is running the risk of overcorrecting here, and I've just been trying to write notes to kind of run through this. I mean, this has become a hot issue because this board has allowed it to be a hot issue. And I would say, furthermore, does this trigger legal challenges for this board down the road? Estimates are inherently fluid. So, Jeff, for example, were the structures going of the slides not projected to be built in a different space at first?
Initially, they were, yes.
And then they were moved because of the soil and the way the soil tested. Is that not true?
Well, that's part of it, but also for the proximity to the existing parks, so it wouldn't be so remote.
They were moved to save money on concrete.
Yes.
Right. So the point is the plans change and estimates are inherently fluid. I think that this could discourage reputable firms from working for the city. I know this.
No reputable firm would work without a written agreement to protect themselves.
Except this board did when it voted in 2024 to execute the deal. And my point is that this is affecting how we are seen in the limelight. And I think the point of the board needs to be to take action and move forward as a city. This will impact us in other ways. You know, we're looking for a city administrator search, and yet we keep doubling back on ourselves, trying to revisit this. And it's like a year and a half late that we're now going to say in the 12th hour we need a ordinance about transparency when we've all voted for an ordinance already, 7-0, that says no $100,000 capital expense can be passed by the board unless it's been further reviewed. Is that not our checkpoint to say, hey, who are we contracting for the work here? How will they be held accountable? The other thing is this increases insurance costs for vendors that are going to work with us, because now we're the group that if you do one thing wrong, we're saying we're going to get legal after you or chase down attorney generals. Does it have slow down procurement timelines? You know, we're trying to work on procurement. Or is there procedural conflicts? Is there anything within the state statutes? And I think we have a whole bag, a host of issues that if I'm outvoted and this goes to a regular meeting, then let's get legal to answer them. But I can think of a whole list of things just in a few short minutes of thinking about why this is not an idea that I can get behind. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Director Christina Savage.
Director Kemp, you clearly don't understand how business works. You never enter into an agreement with someone without something in writing, ever. That doesn't increase insurance. What did increase insurance was buying the slides. That increased insurance, and some of that insurance comes out of the general fund. Did everybody know that? The general liability comes out of the park's operating fund, but the property insurance, is that correct, Jeff? That comes out of the non-departmental?
Property insurance is yes.
And that's what, about $50,000 a year for the water park?
It has been, yes.
Okay, thank you. Actually, no, I'm not done. I'd like to make a motion to put this on the agenda to vote next week.
Without objection, Director Good was in the queue. But
Andre, I'm sorry.
Not a problem. I just spoke to what I was going to mention. The emails that I saw stated that it was not a contract. It was. Oh, my apologies. Yeah, actually, Jeff just spoke to what I was going to mention. Was what I read in the email was that it was an estimate, and in my opinion, what should have happened was before it moved forward, administration, which would have been, and I'm not throwing anyone under the bus, but it would be administration director. Carl Gefkin would have or should have gone into some kind of different type of contract instead of just the emails with the estimate. And I think it was the city's responsibility to further communication. But again, things have been happening ever since we've gotten into these emails with ARM. So again, we agreed on an estimate, and we should have done our due diligence to move forward. And again, it was already stated, we already have an ordinance in place where we have a minimum amount of money that can be spent before we have to get it approved before the board. So I think we're just kind of, doing the same thing twice. But again, I think we do a pretty decent job. I think we dropped the ball on this one, though. I don't mean we as the board.
I think there's a motion on the floor.
The motion to
Put it on the agenda
I
for a
agree with
vote.
that. That's fine.
Do I need 4 or do I just need 1?
Just need 2. Okay.
I just to speak to what Director Good was saying, I agree with you. It should have been put into a contract, and that's all this ordinance is saying, is that we put it in writing, because when it was being discussed, I would have brought it up if I had realized that ARM wasn't contracted. I didn't realize that until just a few meetings ago.
Mayor?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question. Do we even have a warranty with this? Do we get any kind of warranty on these slides?
On the slides, I think there's a 1-year warranty for when the effort is done for construction.
For what now?
A 1-year warranty after the construction is finished.
After construction?
After construction. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. With that, we will go to item number 3.
Item 3 is a review of the 2025 carryover and carry forward requests submitted by city departments for incorporation into the FY 2026 budget appropriations. Carry forwards or encumbrances refer to funding that was encumbered through contract or purchase order in 2025 or earlier, but not yet completed. So the balance of the encumbered funds needs to be carried over so the project purchase can be paid for upon the completion in 2026. Carryovers are for purchases or projects funded but not completed in 2025 for various reasons. Chief Financial Officer Andy Richards will further address this item and answer questions from the board.
Okay, thank you.
So Jeff, are the items in item A, attachment A, things that are under contract or have agreements that are active? I guess can you just further clarify the difference between attachment A and attachment B?
Well, generally, yes, that's true. The attachment A are the things that have been encumbered in our system as purchase orders. So they're set up in the system. And so typically category B would be, the carryovers would be items that are like, well, we've got unused funds. We didn't get to these things in 25. However, there are a few things in there that are under contract, but they haven't been encumbered in our system and set up as a purchase order yet. So there's a few of those things.
But I'll say just to that very point, I mean, Andy, even very recently has been working with several departments to make sure that they are doing those things by issuing purchase orders and getting the dollars encumbered so that we don't have that element of carryover at the end of the year going forward. But that is a work in progress.
Right. I mean, our departments have the option of creating like a blanket PO for certain services or projects, or they may just create the PO as each pay app or each bill comes in. So that's typically the differences there. So we try to encourage them to set up the blanket PO so we get the funds encumbered in the system ahead of time. But I wanted this new, what's up on the screen and what I've passed out. This is my preliminary number as far as where we ended up on fund balance at the end of 25. We're still in the middle of our close. There's still things coming in that we need to record, but I think these are a pretty good number. If you look at the top, so that the first number, that's what the fund balance we projected. If you look back at the budget that we passed, the projected 25 had $20.5 million for general fund, $8 million for street, 25.6 for water sewer, 9.5. So that's what so our projected 26 ending balances were based upon starting at that point. The beginning 26 balance is preliminary, 25.7 for general fund, 8.3. That is my tally right now, what fund balances will end up being. Like I said, we're still closing. There's still things coming in, but I think for the most part, we've got most of it. So based on that number, we've got $10.3 million in budget savings from 25. 5.2 of that is in the general fund, $4 million in the water sewer fund, and then a little bit in street and solid waste. So I wanted to show you that, rolling these 25 items into 26. Obviously want to see kind of where we actually ended in 25 before you make that decision. So the carryovers are on the bottom. These totals tie back to the schedules, the items that you got in the packet, the individual items that were the departments requested to carry over, or POs that we need to roll forward. We've allocated them out, how they will impact the funds individually. And then get back down to what we think, that actually says ending 25 fund balance, but that's actually the revised 26, what we projected. So, the savings are greater than the amounts that we're asking you to carry over into 26. You can see the contingency percentages are still good. I think the budget, we're projecting a 34% contingency percentage for the general fund. That number is down to 32, but that calculation is based upon the amount of expenditures that we have. So, we're adding $3.5 million in there. We still have healthy fund balances by doing this. So I wanted you all to see this before you make this decision to see. I think it looks like we came under budget in 25. We're asking to roll over a few things into 26, and we're still going to have savings left over from the 25 budget after this. So that's kind of where we end up.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor.
Director Settle.
Thank you.
Director Rigo.
Andy, do we account for the money when it PO is issued or when we pay the PO?
It's when we incur the service or receive the goods.
So it's after
there could be a PO out there. We may be paying bills in 26 for stuff that was actually done in 25. We will count those in 25.
But if I issued a PO for a job X in December for $100, and it gets done in the end of December, but it gets invoiced to you in January, is that in the 25 budget or the 26?
25.
But would that be a carryover?
No, okay. Those are not on here.
Okay. So if it's PO'd and then the work is done in 26.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So it's PO'd in 25, but the work or the good is received in 26. That goes to 26.
Mm-hmm.
But okay. Yeah, I was just looking at accounts receivable. Some people actually, when it's PO'd, it goes against the budget and hold the money there, so it'd be in the 25. And I think that's what we used to do a long time ago. And I think before you, I think that's what we used to do is when the year we PO'd it is when we counted it for. Now we're actually when the services are rendered or when the receipts are good is when you're counting against the cash. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Director Rigo and then Director Neil Martin.
I just want to say quickly, when we move forward, Andy, as we consider these, when we vote on these, could we have, prior to that vote, a breakdown that indicates very clearly which of these do we have like active obligations with as far as purchase orders, contracts, maybe sorted in that way, and then we could see also separated out the ones that maybe don't have any hard obligations with them yet?
Certainly.
Thank you.
And just to make sure that I'm clear, these dollars are going to be coming out of $25. Year 25, not 26. Not what we passed from a budget perspective. It's all coming out of budget for 25.
So we plan to spend that money out of our 25 budget, right?
Right.
These items that are in there. So at the end of the year, the appropriations that you made for us to spend that money, those things end. So if things get delayed, it's just a matter of timing. So if the stuff happens in January instead of December, there's no budget for that. You got to use your 26 budget dollars that you didn't intend.
Right.
So this is a matter of putting these dollars in the 26 budget, reappropriating those things so that we can pay for those.
Okay. That makes sense. So, I mean, obviously, healthy fund balances across the board. That water and sewer, I'm interested in as it relates to our next discussion, or the discussion that we'll have here in just a little bit. But, I still think this shows healthy. I see a lot of times online people say we're broke. This doesn't look like we're broke, does it?
I think we made the right moves at the right time.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Director George Cassatt.
Andy, the turn back money from the police department every year, they turn back. Danny, how much y'all turn back last year?
I don't have the total now.
Millions, isn't it?
Sizable amount, yes.
Okay, where does that money goes to what? Where does it go?
It just goes back into the general fund reserve. You're talking about the budgetary savings, what they got appropriated and what they spent.
Yeah, but they also turn back at the end of the year.
Just like, it doesn't turn back. It just it ends. I mean, you budget for 25 and 25 ends, and that goes away, and you reappropriate for 26. Whatever savings is.
Whatever was left in any of the police department programs that was unspent at the end of 2025 is part of that $5.2 million number that Andy's got on this schedule.
That's where the money goes?
Yep. Goes back into the general fund.
Into the general fund. Okay. And then, does that, never mind, go ahead, I'm done. Go ahead.
Okay. Any other questions for Director Good?
Thanks, Mayor. Andy, just because I want to be certain of what Director Rio was asking for. So next week, you're going to provide us with the list, and it will have on that list those funds that are going to be rolled over, and for who and for how much. The reason I'm asking is I had a conversation before the meeting started about Ms. Laura's, and I know they had requested, funds. The board had spoke on it, but I don't know how much of that we're talking about funding. If there's any amount that was encumbered that we're not going to fund, or we are going to fund. So I just want to make sure that that's broken down in such a way that we'll see that the organization or the agency or the group and the amount of money that we're proposing.
I mean, it's in the study session packet, that list. There's two lists, attachment A and attachment B, and everything's listed out. I thought there was.
It is.
I thought there was money for Miss Laura's in there.
It's included on attachment B.
Was it like 333,000?
299,000.
Okay, I'm looking at that. So I'm not certain.
There was personnel and operating.
This is just capital. These are just capital dollars.
It's like the fourth one down on page
21.
I see it.
So this I think goes to the question that I had was, is the difference between attachment A and attachment B that attachment A are things that have actual active either contracts, pay orders, et cetera, and attachment B a representation of things that have been talked about and planned for by department heads or departments, but don't have a firm contract or PO or work order or things like that. They're not quite far enough along.
Yeah. So I think attachment B has a mix of those things.
Okay. So that's what I thought you'd said earlier.
Right.
So I wanted a bit more clarity on attachment B prior to the vote on this.
Yeah. So I mean, you can kind of tell by looking.
Well, if you could just break it out for us, that'd be good. Thank you.
Yeah, I will do that.
Any other questions for Andy? Okay. If not, thank you.
I'd make a motion to place the carryover and carry forward requests on the next regular meeting.
Okay. Thank you. This time we'll go to item number 4.
Item 4 is the annual review of the city's auto and property insurance renewals. For the last several years, the staff has presented this study session review of the auto and property insurance program so that the program renewal can be approved by the board in advance of the March 1 renewal date. The finance department staff and our advisors, Philip Mary and Denise Engel, have been working through this renewal and are prepared to present the details of it to the board this evening. Mr. Richards, along with Ms. Engel and Mr. Mary, are here to lead this discussion.
Okay.
I'm going to pass it over to Denise and Philip to present the.
Okay. Thank you.
On December 24th, we had a bad accident in my family involving my wife. And so for the last 2 months, I've done the best I could to dig in deep for you all. But we're getting closer to getting Lee Mary back on track. It's a very serious situation. I say this to say I've relied very heavily on the nice lady to my hard right, Denise Engel. And I'm very grateful for her partnership, and I'm going to let her go first.
Administrator, Mayor, and Directors, thank you for your time tonight, and thank you for allowing us to present this item. I'm Denise Engel. I am with the public entity practice of Arthur J. Gallagher, which is the third largest broker in the world. Just to kind of give you a quick summary. We have reviewed the renewal opportunity with the Arkansas Municipal League Municipal Property and Vehicle Program, and it's our recommendation that that move forward to the next meeting for a vote. I'll give you a very high-level view of it, just to kind of, I'm sure you don't want to too technical in the weeds resources on this. We could get into that in great detail later, but we did put a few things in your packet for you to review. One thing I wanted to note very quickly is that in this program, and one of the reasons we're recommending it is that you have actually come out in a situation where your losses have exceeded the participation, their dollar participation in this program by a significant amount. As you're sitting right now, you're at a basically 2 to 1 on the property, $2 paid out on your behalf for every dollar you've paid into the program. The program is making some adjustments and trying to true up some areas, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but I just wanted to let you know that last year you were at 31 cents per $100 of property value, and this year with your rate increase, that was a total rate increase through the whole program, was 2 cents, and then there's a 3-cent surcharge on top of that. So you'll be sitting at a total of 36 cents per $100 of property value cost for that program on the property side. We'll leave the vehicles separate to that. But that is a very modest increase for the amount of difference you have between the 2 to 1 situation. But there's a really important factor that I want you to be aware of. They have the lowest deductible program available for you out there. So you're really in a situation where you're $10,000 per building or $10,000 per occurrence, depending on this situation. And the difference of that versus the property market, and I place multi-million and billions of dollars worth of property placements all over the region, and I can assure you that you could not hit that without at least a 5% wind hail deductible and $1 million per occurrence out the door. Then on top of that, you would have to pay premiums, which would probably range just basically on the estimates that I'm getting in my markets now. This is with a very high loss ratio like that. You'd be looking at probably close to $1.5 million in premiums. So that would be a lot of money out the door, and it would have a significant impact on your budget. Therefore, it's our recommendation that you stay in the Arkansas Municipal League property program. On the excuse me, on the vehicle side, you're basically $1.50 to $1 in participation dollars over the last 5 years. So you're in a similar situation. And on that, those are $1,000 per vehicle deductible. If we were to go in the standard market, we could probably get less premium out the door in your total pay, but your deductible would be significant. The challenge that you run into is that many cities, especially your size and larger, self-insure these things, but they have to set up the funds ahead of time. They have to have all the resources in place to manage the losses and to push that number lower so that you're not having that kind of outflow, as well as making sure that it doesn't have an adverse budget effect. So when you look at larger cities, they're already setting aside millions of dollars to pay, and it has a sinking fund. And you're not in that position at this point. So we are trying to make sure that you're going to stay as whole as possible through this. Just to give you a quick summary, each of you received a memorandum from Administrator Dingman, and that has on there the premiums paid, the auto equipment, and the property, and then the total on there. We want to make you aware that that is the invoice that was received a few weeks ago from AML for the property was $1.833 million. However, that is your starting point. That was at the property that was on the schedule at the time, at the values that they were at that time. There was an appraisal done by an outside service at the behest of AML to ensure that your properties are valued appropriately so that if, God forbid, you had a terrible, class 4 or 5 tornado come through here and level things, you'd be able to replace them, not just, depreciate them. And so they wanted to make sure that your values were accurate, and they sent that appraisal document to your staff here at the city roughly a week ago. The document is over 350 pages. So we are combing through that diligently, and Andy has supplied us with many rundown. They've had a lot of analysis that's gone through it with his staff, and they're estimating that that's going to be another $75,000 to $100,000 once you put that in. They've also requested that we put in that we separate line item the generators for the city, which is a critical infrastructure item and is required under many grants and many laws. So we want to make sure that that's accurate, but we do believe that that will come in the range of $100,000 additional to the $1.833 million. But that's not been invoiced yet. So that's a process. The staff here actually have to input each and every item into the system, and then the AML system will produce an invoice to true that up as we go forward. Yes, sir.
I'd like to interject that your property values are well over $500 million in property values. And I'm so excited it's only $75,000. They had carte blanche. Whatever they say goes. And if you don't agree to it, then they won't give you replacement cost. So I'm very proud that they hung in. They kept it very realistic and, in my view, very fair at only $75K.
So it's our recommendation that you move forward with this. And then also on the auto equipment, they review that. The staff is reviewing that and making sure that vehicles are admitted and deleted as have been made over the last few weeks to make sure that number is accurate. But right now you have an invoice of $820,000. We do anticipate that'll probably increase a little bit just from vehicles that were gotten rid of and then others that were added in. But that would be a relatively smaller number. So, any questions?
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Do y'all insure the water park?
No, the separate ARM contract covers that.
Well, they have the liability policy, but I believe the city's property coverage covers the
but
asset.
they have the liability in case
Yes.
people get hurt.
Yes.
That's correct.
Who has the liability?
The operator is required to carry liability insurance.
ARM does.
They
Yes,
have
sir.
the liability for slip and fall,
Yeah.
product, bad hot dog, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We're on the property, and we can get you that exact number if you'd like.
Yeah, I would. Thank you.
I think it's about $49,000. Is that right, Jeff?
That's all right, Jill. I
I
get it.
think that's correct.
About $49,000 for the year.
That's very possible that it may increase later in the year. The appraiser did indicate he wanted to come back when the park was operational to double check some figures there. So there'll probably be a small factor that would be added to that.
So with the addition of more equipment, it's going to be a bigger, more premium, correct?
Yes, that's
That's
a given, yes.
Okay.
So
thank
you're
you.
looking at 36 cents per $100 of value.
Mhm.
That's the blended rate that currently is assigned to City of Fort Smith.
Do they have a value on the water park? Do y'all have a value, the total value?
I'm going to get you an email tomorrow.
Okay.
Give you the limit enforced for that facility and the premium being spent.
Okay.
49.
Thank you.
Well, I was having a hard time following it when I looked in the budget because it's been moved from several different lines. So it appeared to me it had gone up by $46,000, but I couldn't determine because things had been moved around in our budget.
Where there's values before the increase appraisal, there's going to be a value rate last year, rate this year, then rate this year with surcharge because of the 200% loss ratio. It has been moving around. We're nearing the end, but we're not there yet.
I meant specific to the water part.
Right, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay, thank you.
And I want to make sure I spoke clearly again. Thank you, Jeff. Liability, slip and fall, bad hot dog, that kind of thing, that's through the resort management team. Property is here with your
Right,
M&L
and I
carrier.
was looking at just the property
Yeah,
and the
and-
non-departmental. Thank you.
You get a real detailed item tomorrow on that.
Director Kemp.
Thank you, Mayor. Jeff, can you weigh in on what this costs? Because I see the report, I agree, and I appreciate y'all's work, especially when you talk about combing through long documents, making sure you're doing that, and I really thank you for what you're doing. Does this impact the budget conversation of what we projected and what we've allotted in our fiscal 26 and how we thought insurance costs was going to come at us?
It will. I mean, we did project a little bit of an increase in the numbers that we included in the budget, anticipating approximately this 1.833. The additional amount that the folks spoke about that we might see later in the year about for relative to increased valuations, that wasn't included in our budget discussions, but as Mr. Mary and Ms. Engel have said, we're looking at about 75-ish thousand based on calculations of what we think it'll be. But that'll be across all funds, and so a good portion of that will be utility funds, some portion to general, it'll be spread across the funds appropriately.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for our guest?
We mentioned a minute ago about generators. Generators are typically very big, large items. Most of the time might even be bolted down and affixed to the building. When that occurs, that becomes part of the building, and so the building value includes the generator. AML's underwriting team feels it more appropriate that generators, whether they're bolted down or are free, loose, separate, and movable, that they should be described separately and added accordingly, like you would rings on a homeowner's or something. Separate annotation, declaration of each item, serial number, make, model, value, and limit. And so we're undergoing that as well.
Okay, thank you. We need to put this on the agenda.
Yes, please.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to item 5.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 5 tonight is a discussion of the city's comprehensive plan to address water infrastructure needs. This discussion stems from recent comments from the board that it would like to review any master planning that has been done on the city's water infrastructure. The city has planned for the future development of the water system by working with Hawkins Weir Engineers, represented here this evening, to develop a water system master plan, which was last updated in December of 2022. The plan addresses infrastructure needs for water supply, water demand and usage, recommended distribution system improvements, and improvement to water treatment and water transmission facilities. Director of Engineering Todd Mitke is here to facilitate this discussion. And I'll say that one of the benefits of Mr. Mitke being new to his position is he's offered a fresh set of eyes to what we're showing here tonight and offers a fairly independent perspective at this point. But I'll turn it over to Mr. Mitke after he's done distributing his goods here. Todd, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Dingman. Thank you for having me tonight. I come to you before you today to discuss the city's comprehensive plan for our water system as we move forward. I came to the city approximately a month ago and have been digging into our water, sewer, streets, and stormwater systems as much as I can. My goal is to bring a fresh and unbiased view to the city as we look to future projects. In my view, the city has a water system that many would envy. Excellent past planning practices in previous generations have secured 2 large-scale water reservoirs to serve us and surrounding customers. Our system delivers good water to between 150,000 and 200,000 people in the Arkansas River Valley, and it also includes 2 counties in Oklahoma. City management has a sincere desire to keep the system in robust working order, and the users have a very justifiable, high expectation of service. Operationally, the Public Works and Water Resources departments have crews ready to work 24 hours a day to keep the system working, and city employees take pride and ownership in the job that they do. As infrastructure ages, every city must continue to plan for the future and maintain what they have. Fort Smith does this, and as the new Director of Engineering, I'm very encouraged by that. As we look to any comprehensive plan for a city, we should look to our working culture to expect excellence in our daily work, providing the best possible services to the citizens of Fort Smith and our many other customers. As we look to our operational, maintenance, and capital projects, the future of our system, I see that we already have an excellent working culture with the staff here at Fort Smith. That should not be taken lightly because some public agencies do not have that. I will now go over some details in our comprehensive plan. This Water Master Plan was developed by Hawkins Weir in 2022 and still applies today. We can start by, I'm going to summarize our system a little bit because it's important for everybody to know how big our system is and how much we have invested in it. So we have approximately 719 miles of water line in our city, ranging between 3/4 of an inch and 60-inch diameter pipes. That's a lot. Imagine 719 miles. The Fort Smith water system is supplied by water impoundments at Lake Fort Smith and Lee Creek reservoirs, both in Crawford County, Arkansas. Lake Fort Smith is located near Mountainburg, and it's our primary water source. In 2006, construction was completed on the enlarged dam that combined the older Lake Fort Smith and the Lake Shepherd Springs into an expanded combined impoundments of 84,000 acre-feet of water. That's 1 foot deep, 84,000 acres. Equivalent for the full depth of the reservoir. The Lee Creek Reservoir is located near Van Buren and is a secondary water source. When it was completed in 1992, the impoundment had 7,100 acre-feet of water storage. We have 2 treatment plants supplying potable water to the city and its retail customers. Lake Fort Smith Water Treatment Plant is located immediately downstream of our large dam structure, and it was originally constructed in 1935, and as I said earlier, completed in 2006 with the expansion. Its capacity is approximately 40 million gallons per day. The future expansions at Lake Fort Smith water treatment plants, most of which are shown in this 10-year CIP, which is item 6 on the agenda tonight, is intended to increase the treatment capacity from 40 million gallons per day to 70 million gallons per day. The Lee Creek treatment plant has a capacity of approximately 10 million gallons per day, and we do use that regularly. They are 2 different water sources, so we blend them throughout the city, and that does have some issues as we have an extremely cold water coming from Lake Fort Smith and slightly warmer at Lee Creek. So that is what I've learned, some of the reason for our tanks having excessive condensation in the summertime, and we get the bad look to them from that. So having cold water is not a bad thing. I like ice cold water coming out of my tap too, but it causes some complications when that condensation occurs. As you are very well aware, our transmission line improvement project is through 5 phases. Luckily, the first phase is done, but it was only 6 miles. So the new transmission line total is about 35 miles, and we got a lot more work to do and not enough funds to do it, as I'll come up with later. In our infrastructure, we have 16 pump stations throughout the city. We have 13 water storage tanks and 4 clear wells. Clear wells are large storages up at the reservoirs themselves within the water treatment plant boundaries. But the water storage is including the the ground tanks and elevated storage tanks you see throughout the city. As any system has, we have limitations on our water delivery through leaks. We have non-revenue water and revenue water. Everybody wants everything to be revenue water, but no system has it. I've not seen a single system in the United States that has less than 2% of non-revenue water. Usually it's much more than that. According to the master plan that I'm reviewing, is our approximate percentage in 2022 was 25%. It may be a little bit higher now, it may be a little bit lower. One thing I want to highlight is our excellent Public Works Department and Water Resources Department have fixed 90% of the leaks since this was first presented in September of 2025. So 90% is huge, from 600 and some leaks down to 60 some leaks.
Well,
so I'd like to applaud
that's
that.
reported leaks, is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
So
Yeah,
there could still be potential leaks that we don't even know about.
There could be. There always could be. One of the dangers I have seen both in sewer and water throughout where I've worked in the country is when you have a water main down by a creek somewhere, you're never going to find that unless there's other avenues. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that
Can you
from one of your
remind me,
ideas.
for a system our size and our age, what is typical water loss? Is it about 20%? Are we a little over where we should be, or are we right on target for our size and our age?
In my opinion, 15 to 20% would be
15 to 20?
optimal. I mean, 0 would be best, but 15 to 20% would be average.
Okay.
So we are a little bit high.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. So where does that non-revenue water go? Like I said, leaks is one of them. Another one is we exercise our fire hydrants regularly. We don't pay for that water, but we need that water to circulate and keep that water fresh in the fire hydrants. Our fire department does an excellent job of that, but that's non-revenue water, and that's everybody. Everybody does that. Our revenue water is sold to over a dozen customers, and I don't want to list them all because I miss one, but throughout the River Valley, throughout the Sebastian Crawford County area, some outlying counties in LaFleur and Sequoia County in Oklahoma. So we are lucky to partner with them, and it is a privilege to serve them, but we also owe it to our customers to preserve the resources and have everyone pay for what they use. In September of 2025, Director Katsavas brought up an idea of a satellite-based leak protection. I did a little bit of research on that. There's two main companies that I've found that perform that, Asterra and Paradigm. And basically, it's exactly what you would think. A satellite flies over the city, as they often do, and we pay for some of their time to do some special scans and, as they call it, find underground moisture and temperature anomalies that indicate likely leak points. So Arlington, Texas and Midland, Texas both perform that with Asterra and Paradigm. And it matters because satellite scans can cover large areas with a single pass. In Paris, I did something similar to this that I'd like to institute. A similar project, except it was from an airplane, to get survey points for better contours for our local surveyors and our local design projects. This is along the same lines, but from the 50-mile scale instead of the half-a-mile scale. But it's the same general idea of laser shots on the ground and infrared and other ways to find moisture anomalies. So,
do you have data on what the reductions were with the leaks they found? Because some of the numbers I saw, if we're looking at, I think we're producing 29 million gallons a day, a 3 to 5% reduction in loss could be up to 1.5 million gallons per day, which I think may be equivalent to what that new transmission line is going to bring in.
I do not have specific on what our system would be because they really need to run the system first. And we don't see a lot of water loss on our transmission line. It's mostly through smaller leaks throughout the city.
Right.
But
Well, my thinking was that we've been talking about this transmission line. It's, I think over $500 million. Should we be pursuing other lower cost options, to recover some of our water?
in my opinion, we should. We should look at
Okay.
every option. But it will, also my opinion, it would not remove the need for that transmission line improvement down to Fort Chaffee. And
But it might buy us a little more time where we can make it a little more financially feasible.
it definitely wouldn't hurt.
Thank you.
And I'm open to every option. This is, you can maybe sense my excitement with what we have here, because a lot of cities don't have what we have. And I want to build on our success, but using an option like this satellite leak protection or leak detection is going to cost between $60,000 and $150,000. It's non-program money, but you could see things that we would never find without eyes on the ground. Our public works crews notice things all the time. Generally, I know we're no different here. Matt, please correct me. But as soon as we find something, we're on it. But if we can't see it in the trees or near a creek somewhere, it could be years. And yeah, if we get into even 200,000 gallons a day, we're talking about real money with that. So I'm all for it. We'd need to program that probably in a budget amendment or the 2027 budget, in my opinion. But it's worth pursuing, and I'll get more data if the board would like me to. Just let me know. I have asked Hawkins Weir to update something they presented to the board approximately 2 years ago, but still applies today. And Wes, would you mind coming forward? I'm going to share the microphone with him. He's provided a PowerPoint presentation to help communicate this, but our Fort Chaffee area is growing very fast, and the way we would get water there is circumspect in different areas of our transmission lines. And so the importance of getting our main transmission lines from Lake Fort Smith down to Chaffee Crossing area is critical in the future, and Wes will be here to present this.
Absolutely. Thanks, Todd. So this presentation may look familiar to a lot of you. I think, Director Kemp, you weren't here at the time, but we presented this initially in February of 24 to the board. We've revised that today. We've abbreviated a few of the slides because the biggest updates we wanted to make were the demand projections, because that's kind of the biggest focus of this area. Today's agenda, we're going to go through the demand projections, provide a flow diagram, kind of your Chaffee Crossing area, look at some deficiencies in and around the area and some improvements that help resolve some of those deficiencies, as well as review water storage, and then we'll get into kind of a summary with questions at the end. So as Todd mentioned, I'll start with the legend over here on the right. We've got several terms that I wanted to define before we get started. So ADD will be your average daily demand, MDD, maximum daily demand, MGD, million gallons per day, and MG will be million gallons. So starting at the top of this diagram, Todd mentioned you have two treatment plants, Lee Creek, which has a capacity of 10 million gallons, and your Lake Fort Smith water treatment plant, which has a capacity of 40 million gallons. The initial presentation to the board was based on 2024 projections. We have since updated that. Initially, we developed the master plan in 2022. In late 2023, early 2024, we were notified of some approved developments that were going to go in the Chaffee Crossing area that were pretty significant demands that were not accounted for in the initial master plan development. So we updated demand projections. At the time, it was anticipated that you would be at 49.9 MGD for your 2024 maximum daily demand. Well, we've got more recent data provided by Fort Smith for this update, and it looks like that projection has slid. So now, so maybe some of those developments didn't quite progress the way they thought they would. More recent projections are the max day demand will not exceed 50 MGD, which is your treatment and transmission capacity, until 2027 going into 2028. Going down to the bottom portion of this slide, you have north half of your system, south half of your system. Our presentation today is going to focus on Chaffee Crossing area, which is located in the southern part of your system. And so that includes our presentation will talk about your Loose and Wildcat tank service area, Chaffee Crossing tank service area, Jack Freeze, and your Howard Hill tank service area. All those located in and around the Chaffee Crossing area. This is one of the main focal points today is the demand projection. So initially, after the updated developments, we were anticipating you were going to exceed 50 MGD, which is the red line you see here. That's your total treatment transmission capacity for both treatment plants. In 2024, as you can see kind of at the start, the jagged lines here at the beginning of the graph, that's real world data that we were provided from the utility to update this graphic. So in 2023, you saw around 45 MGD for maximum daily demand, which is your green line. 2024, your maximum daily demand was 47.7 MGD, and then in 2025, we saw a slight reduction again, around 45.5 to 46 MGD. So for our projections,
That's your max number, right?
Yes, sir. That's the
That's not
max
the daily number.
No, so the blue line you see here on the bottom half is your average daily demand, which you're not anticipating exceeding 50 MGD until 2043, 2044.
I get that, but when you say this, people perceive that that's what we're doing daily. This is a max hot summer, 110 degree number you're projecting.
Yep.
A 1 or 2 day a year, not a daily number.
Yeah, when we reviewed those, there was around, because that was a question last time we presented on how many maximum daily demands there were. Maximum daily demand is just that. It's the max for the year. But there were over 20 days within 10% of the maximum daily demand.
I understand that. Just trying to get that number. So we're averaging about 33 million gallons a day.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And this takes into account the rate increases that were just implemented a couple years ago that has dropped demand.
Yes, sir. And that's why we based it off the 2024 data, which is 47.7, and we projected at the 1.5% growth rate that was outlined in the master plan. There was a dip in 2025. It was a drier year, and there's potential rate sensitivity to the more recent rate increases that could have contributed to that. But we have based the projections here today off the 2024 47.7 and projected forward at 1.5%.
Okay, so it's technically not taking into account the drop in the rate increase. If you're looking at 24,
if you project directly from 2025, it does not.
Okay.
So yes, there could be a slight dip in that if that was to continue in 2026. And 2027.
So I have a question about the projections, because there was something I was reading. It said in like 20 years ago, we were at about 29 million gallons a day. Like, we hadn't increased that much in nearly 20 years. So why are we suddenly seeing this huge increase in demand?
So that may have been the average day demand that you were looking at. So our average day demand is, as you can see, the blue line, it's around 35 MGD. Mm-hmm. The maximum daily demand is significantly higher in those summer months, where you'll see that spike in demand that gets you closer to your treatment and transmission capacity.
But if you look at, over 20 years, just your average daily demand, I mean, it's increasing, what, about 15? Yeah. Whereas over the past 20 years, it's been relatively stable.
Yeah, and we kind of detail how we projected the growth in the master plan. We looked at several factors, including population projections, y'all's water production data, and usage from just your wholesale users alone to come up with a roundabout projection. It was around 1% for population projections, 0.86% for your wholesale users, and I don't recall what the number was for the total water production, but we met with utility staff, and it was kind of agreed on that 1.5% was probably the best growth rate to move forward with.
Can we have this same chart from 2010 to today? So go from 2010 to 2050, actual usage to 24, and your projections.
We can. I don't have that here today, but we can absolutely.
Just put it together and give the board. Thank you.
If I could, I'll slide in on this one. Yes. On the days, you said there were 20 days in 25 that we were within 10%?
2024.
2024.
Yeah.
How many days did it actually happen that we were at demand or beyond demand?
So you never exceeded 50 MGD in 2024. The green line here is the peaks.
So it just came within 10%, is what you're saying?
Yeah, so we were at 47.7 in 2024, so 2.3 MGD shy of your treatment transmission capacity.
And then if the city, do we have a policy that if we're Do we know when those days are coming? I mean, can that be implemented, a policy that allows alternate water days for just that one? I mean, are we talking about a week here, or are we talking about the summer season?
It all depends on the weather, honestly, and how much people water. So we have, from what I've been told, we have irrigation rate. Well, I know this, but we base our water demand payments from everybody, from all the ratepayers, is based on their winter average. And so when that goes over winter average, you have an irrigation rate in the summer. And I know that our public information officer does their best to get social media blitzes out saying, hey, it's getting dry, please conserve water and everything. But folks don't have to do that. It's all reflected in their water rates. The more they use, the more they pay. But when we don't have a way to curb that and throttle anybody with
Sure. No, and I'm not advocating for that. I was just more like, when that happens, do we find that helps? I mean, does it actually bring that demand down? I mean, does it get us through that patch?
That's something I'll have to find. Jimmy, do you know offhand if that helps, those warnings?
Historically, it hasn't helped a lot. So, for example, last year when we had a main water line break, we put those issues out, and we've hardly seen any variation in our water usage over that 2-week period. We had the main water line broke. Well, I'll say we do have those water conservation measures, is what Jimmy's referring to, that we implemented during that program. And when we have, a sustained period when we're hitting up against these maximum usage, we can elect to implement water conservation measures for that reason. We are going to have a topical discussion on that process and what that means, but that is something that is applicable to our retail users in the city, and it's also applicable to our wholesale users.
With that, we'll move on. This is a flow diagram in and around the Chaffee Crossing area. As I discussed earlier, this is not your entire distribution system. It's just that southern part that we focused on for this presentation. So it starts with your loose and wildcat ground storage tanks, kind of on the northern portion of your southern system. So those two tanks are connected. They're your primary sources of storage for your southern part of the system. They both loose provides supply pressure to the Brook Stephen pump station, which fills your Jack Freeze tank. Your Jack Freeze tank provides supply pressure to the Rye Hill pump station, which then fills your Howard Hill tank. Moving back to the top on the right side, your Chaffee Crossing pump station is also supplied by your loose and wildcat ground storage tanks, and then Chaffee Crossing pump station fills your Chaffee Crossing water storage tank, which provides supply pressure to the Woods pump station, which fills your Woods tank. The blue lines you see here, existing transmission lines. The green lines represent proposed improvements. So start on the bottom right, the one between the Howard Hill elevated tank and your Chaffee Crossing ground storage tank. That's an interconnection to help between those pressure planes to help resolve minimum pressure deficiencies in that area, which are there's currently low pressures in that area already. And then the green line on the left side of your screen, that represents the Highway 45 transmission line, which that project is currently under construction right now with a estimated completion date of 2027. And then moving back to the top right of your screen, there's a graphic again representing the Lake Fort Smith water treatment plant, and the red line is the proposed 48-inch transmission line, and just kind of a general diagram of where it would connect into the Chaffee Crossing area. These next three graphics show some of the deficiencies in and around the Chaffee Crossing area. The red icons represent where we're seeing residual pressures less than 20 psi, yellow or between 20 and 35 psi for residual pressures. And I should note that all of these are based on the 2027 maximum daily demand of 49.8 MGD.
Do you have the same charts based on daily average?
We do not have the average daily here, no.
Can you overlay that?
We can, and I can speak to that. There's not going to be
and I know what it's going to do. It's going to
absolutely.
change. It's going to go up because you have less demand.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, your pressures will be much better.
green, it says 35 and above, and then you're going to see
Yeah.
it's mostly green.
Yes, sir. So I'll start down here. The purple arrow on the bottom of your screen is the kind of your Rye Hill area. The blue arrow is just north of Ben Guerin Park. Orange arrow is 0 Street, just below the Moody Road pressure zone, which is kind of your Skyline Drive area. And then the green arrow that's a dedicated line going to your Mazard Water Treatment Plant, just north of Rogers Avenue.
I hate to interrupt here, but that chart does not say maximum pressure. So that's the misleading part of this. It doesn't say based on maximum daily usage anywhere.
Yes, and that's why I wanted to clarify. It is based off your maximum daily demand, but it's
when you put that up there, people will see that and think that's a problem based on average usage instead of maximum usage.
Gotcha. We'll get that revised if we present again. So with that, I just wanted to kind of show what the potential impacts were, and I apologize. This is existing demands. This is with the 2027 maximum daily demands. So as you can see, there's already deficiencies in the Rye Hill area. When you project to 2027 demands, you see some additional deficiencies in a few of these other areas with exacerbated deficiencies up around your green arrow with the supply line to the Mazard Water Treatment Plant. This final graphic shows if the Highway 45 and the Chad Colley, the two transmission lines in town that we talked about, were installed, this would be the impacts that you'd see. Your deficiencies in the Rye Hill area would go away, but we wanted to illustrate the importance of the transmission line and water treatment plant because, as you can see, the green arrow, for example, or I'm sorry, the orange arrow, for example, this is without those transmission lines. This is with those transmission lines, and the reason for that is you're limited on the amount of flow that you can pull into the system. So you're resolving deficiencies in one area, but you're pulling flow from other areas to help resolve those deficiencies.
What is normal pressure for a household?
For a household, you'd like to maintain over 35 psi. If you have less than 35 for two-story residences or ones that climb in elevation from their meter to the house, you can start seeing some pressure issues within the residence.
Can you just clarify one thing? Because I'm having trouble reconciling the growth projections. The 19-year annual growth from 2000 to 2019 was 0.04. Now we're anticipating 1.5% a year?
Yes. So, again,
where's all this growth coming from? That's what I'm having a hard time reconciling.
So we had, as I mentioned earlier, we had several projections we looked at. We looked at population projections. We looked at both the 19-year annual growth and the more recent 9-year growth. So 19-year was 0.04%. 9-year annual growth was 1.14% when you're looking at water usage. And then your wholesale users was around 0.8% growth, 0.86% growth.
What page are you referencing on? This is what's in our packet, right?
Yeah. Yes, this is page.
I've seen these. There's a bunch of different
57.
growth.
Yeah.
Okay, 57.
54 for the revenue water.
Yeah, and
Let me get there.
I just got the copy of those.
Yeah, page 55 in the packet for the demand projections.
Okay, I'm starting to get into populations. Yeah, I don't think we're matching up, whatever you've got. Is that the 22 plan?
This is the 22 plan, yes. I'm on it's actually page 21 of the master plan, but I don't know how that
Okay,
is
so
in your agenda
21?
here today. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
I got it. Is that 19-year growth of 0.04 and 9-year of 1.14?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, I'm with you.
I'm worried we may be overestimating the growth.
And
Something that could be adjusted.
Yeah.
We could look at that.
It absolutely could. And this section of the report, this 5.3, starting on page 21, kind of talks about the justification of why we went with 1.5%. There were several factors that we considered. We tried to look at all avenues of potential growth. I know there was some potential areas at the Chaffee, with Fort Chaffee, they were looking at certain, a pretty substantial amount of growth there, which is explained in this report, I believe. And then Just with the 1.14%, we hate to estimate on the wrong side of growth, so we erred on the side of caution there after discussions with utility staff, and that's why we settled on 1.5. But it can certainly be reconsidered and look at an alternative growth rate. Next graphic here, talks about the water storage in and around the Chaffee Crossing area. The initial presentation included all 6 tanks. It was a pretty busy graph, so we've simplified it here today with just one graphic that shows the total volume of storage. This includes your Luce, your Wildcat, your Jack Freeze, Chaffee Crossing, Howard Hill, and your Woods tank, all basically in one graphic. Your total storage volume of those 5 tanks is 27.5 million gallons. And for the purposes of our hydraulic model, the initial volume at we did a 24-hour simulation was 22.5 million gallons, and at the end of a 24-hour simulation for the 2027 max day demand, you saw around 5 million gallons of storage depleted, so you're down to 17.5 at the end of the day. It's just important to note that if you were to see sustained maximum daily demand, you would continue to see a depletion of storage in that area. And then finally, we'll get to a summary. I noted that the green lines are the 2 improvements that we talked about within the distribution system in this area, the Highway 45 utility relocation project and the Chad Colley extension. That helps to resolve some deficiencies in and around the area. But ultimately, the bigger priority in this area is the treatment plant and transmission line upgrades, because your treatment and transmission capacity is your limiting factor in this area. And with that, I'll open to any questions that y'all have.
So, I'm sorry, Mayor.
Go ahead, George.
What is it going to be the total cost of this? Have y'all figured the cost yet?
That one.
Is that this?
We're going to get to the cost of the 10-year plan here in the next agenda item, but overall the cost is considerable to get the transmission line. Just what we show here to get transmission line, the rest of it done is around $200 million.
Down to the river?
Yeah, from the end of phase 1 into Chaffee Crossing. But that's with today's dollars, and these are baseline estimates. They're not engineers' estimates, so more effort needs to be put into those, but it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars that have been reported before.
So how are we going to pay for that?
We need new money.
Well, in other words, rate increase.
I don't know how we can do it. I have some recommendations, but I'm going after any grant I can find. There's the topic at the board meeting last week of getting a mile of free boring to be paid for, which is approximately $15 million in value. I'm going after things like that. Anything our grant coordinator, Chris Hoover, has. We got $15 million worth of federal appropriations in this that I don't want to lose, so that's what I'm going to get in the next agenda item, but we got to look at all the options.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Did you, Director Rigo?
Oh, thank you, Mayor. May you please, thank you for your presentation. May you please send us this revised version reflecting the questions and the additional changes when you get it completed? Because I know it wasn't in the packet, so we just had it up here. So would you mind sending it to us?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, and we're going to ask for a 1.14% growth instead of 1.5. And that's exactly what the trend was for the average annual in the previous 10 years to this report. So it'll show exactly what was grown. One thing I want to plan for is we know Arkansas is growing. NWA is getting it right now. I think it's coming down here. I want to be ready for it. Doesn't mean we should keep it from investing. I think we should continue investing. But my recommendation is for us to look at what our kids and grandkids are going to need. And personally, as a city engineer, the way I make decisions is what the city engineer in 50 years, 100 years is going to wish I did, and what the public in 50 and 100 years is going to wish I did. And that's why I'm glad that we have these sorts of discussions, and I'm open to any ideas y'all have, anytime.
So if we do nothing, what year will we be water neutral? I mean, where we can't, no more water supplied? If everything stays like it is now, how many more years can we make it?
Could we go back to slide number 5, please?
I mean, considering the same amount of growth.
Let's try this one here. So on our average daily demand, if we do nothing, we would be around 2041. We would be hitting our plant demand that we can do now, and we wouldn't have water available beyond that. But that's only on our average day. Our maximum day, let's our summer days, we would start seeing more days where you turn on the sprinkler to water the yard and a trickle comes out, not enough pressure. You'd run into the second story on a new house in Chaffee Crossing. You turn on the bathroom faucet upstairs and maybe a trickle, if you're lucky, would come out. So these are the types of things we're trying to plan for so that never happens.
Can we still gravity flow 30 million gallons a day?
I don't know the specifics on how many gallons, but we can still gravity flow a lot. But one of the good things about the new transmission line, once we're all the way done with Phase 5, we can gravity flow our average daily demand without any problems. And Jimmy, please correct me if I'm wrong, but we'd be closer to our maximum. If we have power outages, if the generators go out, we could handle it with, or even to save money, we could turn them off, turn off the pumps and run gravity.
That's what I was saying, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Director Neil Martin and then Director Christina Casabas.
So what did you say our cost was for the transmission line? Did you say 200 million?
CIP shows around 200 million.
What did we? Yeah, we had a presentation before you got here of transmission line, and I'm looking for the board.
Is that for the complete project, 200 million? Because we were told it was either 530 or
Yeah.
580. It was a whole nother consent decree.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at.
That is for both the water treatment plant upgrades.
That's the treatment plant upgrade, all the way to 70 million. Okay.
Yeah,
so that's where that
approximate cost is around 130 to 170 million alone.
Okay.
Still, the math doesn't get there. I think I need more effort to be done in these numbers in future years to show, because I think these numbers are still a little bit low.
So you said 200 for the transmission line, 170, so 370, just so we'd have a bigger transmission line, and then we could treat that additional demand.
Exactly.
That doesn't take into account distribution system, pumping, anything like that.
I'd need to check, but I think that included a lot of the, especially the Chaffee Crossing CIP projects at the end.
Okay.
Because in a lot of ways, once we get the water into Chaffee Crossing, we still have millions needed for improvements.
I mean,
but I'd have to do more research.
You were correct that when we looked at those numbers, that was another consent decree in effect, and not another consent decree, but it's another dollar amount similar to what we've got left on the consent decree on the sewer
Exactly,
side.
and one of the problems I see is if we do nothing, then I'm afraid we're at risk for a true consent decree from the state of Arkansas,
Why?
the EPA, and the Justice Department, because they don't like it when people turn on their faucets and there's no water. So
They would enter a consent decree for that?
Yes.
They have in the past, yeah, in other areas of the country.
I'm not saying that's where we want to go, but I thought consent decrees were if you were in violation of some order or some law or something.
It's a public safety issue, and
Okay.
that is true. In our case with the sewer, it is for those reasons, but they have a litany of reasons they can use to put folks under consent decree. Part of it in my research with the consent decree is we are not in a lonely group of consent decree for sewer. This is off topic, but there's hundreds
Sure
of
as heck
cities.
feels like it.
It feels like it, but there's hundreds and hundreds of cities throughout the country, including a city in my home state of Seattle that is under a consent decree. Houston, Texas, consent.
Right.
I mean, you've got the big New York City in consent decrees in some areas.
So I think this gets back to how do we fund it. So I go back to this, our projected fund balance, and we had a water rate increase a couple of years ago that allowed us to be able to comply with our bond holders or our bond issuers, and we were able to stave that off. But in terms of funding, we got a 41% fund balance. That's healthy. That comes in, I think we've got a budget savings there, but we've got to figure out is that possible for us to be able to use to be able to fund some of these things in order to be able, because I mean, we've got massive sewer. When somebody gets their water, sewer, and sanitation, that sewer is massive. And basically, what I'm hearing here is we've got to be able to fund the water side. If that has to get passed on by rates, folks are going to get hit doubly hard on top of the rates that were already implemented just to satisfy bondholders. So, we've got to be creative about it. But this is I think should be concerning to everybody in this room and everybody watching online, that this is a pretty significant challenge here.
I agree.
If I might add, I mean, to satisfy the bondholders, yes, but we also needed that rate increase that we did in July, August of 2024 to help with operating expenses and just maintaining the system operations. Now, if you'll remember, we also contemplated in the earlier part of 24, potentially doing two, incremental increases. The one that we did essentially for operations and bond covenant issues and such. But we also contemplated if we needed to put essentially a second round of rate increase to specifically address these capital project needs that we knew are coming to us. And whether that, yes, there is a fund balance for the water and sewer fund. That $40 million is something that will help sustain the operations of that fund, but it's not going to sustain this program. Those dollars are not going to accomplish these projects that we need to accomplish.
This says there are $0 available for any of these projects.
That is absolutely true.
$0.
Yes, sir.
Nothing.
Yes, sir.
In 2027, yes.
No, this tells me all the way to 2035.
Starting in 2027.
Starting in 2027.
Yes.
Zero expected revenue.
Yes.
And we're using what fund balances we have for the 2026 projects, the most critical of the critical. And that's what I'll get to in the next agenda item, is showing you what those are, ranked 1 through 9.
Yes.
Director Christine Savage.
Well, you mentioned being creative, and that's why I've been advocating for the satellite or drone-assisted leak detection. Because if we can get 1.5 million, 2 million gallons a day, that significantly stretches out our need. So, you think that costs about $150,000?
That's my initial estimate. We have around 200 square miles that would cover. So I'm going to get with our Public Works Department and our GIS department and see what that would be. I also like to, we have to run the transmission line too, because as you mentioned in the September meeting, if we have a leak in that transmission line, that's some serious dollars. But fortunately, with our meters ahead of what's coming out of the Lake Fort Smith and Lee Creek plants and what we have coming into the city, we don't see a lot of loss. We do see a little bit. And this satellite, all they'd have to do is run a little strip along the transmission line of data gathering for the moisture sensitivity, and they'd be able to see those. So we could get right on those. We could wrap those pipes short term, and I think it's a great idea.
Sir, are we already able to determine how much we're producing but not delivering, or that's really what we need this for?
In my opinion, we would need the satellite for cutting down on that non-revenue water, because we know what we make and we know what we charge, and it's elusive where the rest goes. We know we exercise a lot of fire hydrants. That's one of them. We know we just fixed 90% of the leaks that were identified as of September, but we don't know where some of those other leaks may be that we haven't been reported. So I think it's a slam dunk. We should do it.
If we're spending $100,000 or $150,000 and it's buying us several years, I think that's worth looking into. Thank you.
Thank Director Kemp and then Director Rigo.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you both for your presentation. Do we have an update? Are we still testing 3-inch water lines or greater? Or is the city still going to pursue that effort as well of existing customers?
Yeah, testing water meters.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
And then is that still underway, or is it going to be underway, or what? Is there a timeline of when that starts?
I'll defer to Matt Meeker, operating that program.
And while he's coming, Mr. Meeker's coming, we talk about water leaks. But unaccounted water also includes a faulty meter, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know, just for example, I had a landlord talk to me this past week, and one of their people that they have to pay their water usage, it was reviewed and found out that there was a faulty water meter, and they went from a minimum water bill to an $8,000 a month water bill. So, it's stuff like that when we catch those things, this is why I think we should be testing 3-inch lines or greater. And I was just going to ask, Mr. Meeker, is there a timeline of when you would begin looking at that?
Well, it's going to have to. We're waiting on our equipment to come back. It's been being calibrated currently, and so as soon as that gets back for those larger meters, we're going to start working on that. So
it's probably a pretty. Is that like a unique thing? Or does it take a while to probably get your stuff back?
It should be back fairly quickly. I expect it back fairly quickly. It just takes a little bit. So
good. And then that's probably a pretty involved process, isn't it? I mean, to go through and test the larger lines, does that take a while?
It will. I mean, we'll just have to dedicate some personnel to it, probably 2 or 3 individuals at least to it. So,
because if we were at 30% water loss, just for easy numbers, 10% in leaks, and we're still at 20, but then we find water meters that are not inefficient or inefficient in their registering, or inaccurate, really is a better term for it, in their readings, and we're able to draw that down to 10%, and we only had 10%. Unaccounted for water loss. I wonder what that does to the revenue picture for the utilities department. That's just a question of mine. And then we look at, does that open up any discussion of revenue bonds so that we are able to now realize we're charging for more water because we know where it's going and how it's coming out. And then the other one that on this discussion of this that I had to bring to you, I remember Mr. Jimmy was talking about at times that there were parts of the city that had too much pressure. And there was a discussion about installing pressure regulation so that we could draw that back. And I wondered how, if we were to pursue something like that, does that help this pressure system that we're talking about? I know we talked about creating a loop and things of that nature, but if there's over-pressurization in one part and you could regulate that down, not only is that helping with water leaks, but does that help the picture of where the system is struggling?
I would say probably not, but okay. I would have to defer.
So it's mainly just a water leak
I'd have to defer to engineering on that. So,
okay, Mr. Todd, do you have a thought on that?
I do. From operational, I don't disagree with Mr. Meeker one bit, but for the long-term water main usage. Let's say downtown we have a high pressure problem for the types of pipes we have. They're really old, they're cast iron in most cases. And we have some, in our 10-year CIP, we have a couple pressure reducing stations to regulate that. We'll talk about this in the next item or now, but Jimmy has gone through some training and find a dynamic pressure control system that could be a fraction of that cost of what would be $1.5 million we could get for a couple $100,000 to be basically an electronic screwdriver to adjust in our pressure reducing stations that we can equalize the pressure during the day to make that happen at night too. Because what's happening is during the daytime usage downtown, we have high water usage. It gets down to normal pressures, what is normal for those pipes. At night when nobody's using water, that pressure skyrockets, and that, for lack of a better term, ages the pipes prematurely. It's like their propane tank, like their pressure vessel, and that it's bad for the pipes to have that expansion contraction, so to speak, for the pressures. So I see the pressure reducing stations and other innovative ideas to help prolong the infrastructure that we have. But for one thing, as Matt mentioned, we have the pressure doesn't equal water usage. So when you have pressure coming out of a faucet a lot faster, it's hard to explain, but we have minimum water wasting that way, but it's the problems when it ages the pipes too quickly.
I think I can appreciate your answer, and I thank you for that, for the part that I understand. I'm definitely not an engineer. On the remaining leaks, I know from when we've drawn down that big number to this where we are, my understanding is that these leaks are going to be more involved to get fixed. Does your department have what it needs to continue to address the more nuanced leaks that remain?
Yes, we do. It's just we're hanging kind of around 65 right now for a couple of reasons. It's like you said. So basically all the low-hanging fruit, we've taken care of that. And so basically what we're left with now are the new leaks that have come out, and then the more difficult leaks, the ones that are more difficult to resolve, that require scheduled shutdowns and those things. The other issue has just been a temporary one here recently. I mean, we had got thrown off a couple weeks by the snow issue. You know, sure. The issue with it being on the ground was a problem because we couldn't get new utility locates during that time, and then those areas we already had located basically got washed away essentially, or wiped away by the snow and everything. So that has slowed us down here at the 1st of February. So, like I said, we're still hovering around the 65 leak mark and stuff, and haven't knocked out as many as we'd like to leaks as we'd like to see so far this month. But we expect to pick back up to the last half to 2/3 of the month.
Appreciate the hard work, guys.
Director Rigo and then Director Settle, and then we're going to take a 10-minute recess.
Okay, thank you. I know maybe this is stepping on item 6 a little bit, but items 5 and 6 have kind of blended together somewhat. I mean, and this CIP that was defeated back in December, and I believe I was the determining vote to defeat this back in December, the quicker that we move on from this structure and this unachievable structure, I think the better. I mean, there's no easily achievable way that you're going to generate, you know, I mean, 2029, $106 million are needed, 2030, $139 million, $194 million. I mean, these are not numbers that are gettable, I would say, in a structure in this way. And so I think we should really consider maybe breaking this down a little bit, looking at, you know, all options on the table as you've spoken to, and looking at it in more 2 or 3 year chunks, even maybe deciding amongst ourselves what is the maximum that we're able to spend in a given year, and then working back from a number or a structure like that. Then we lean on the expertise of the engineers that we have on staff to say, this is where we think how we can make the most positive difference per the year and per the number that's been set aside. I mean, that's just one thought that crossed my mind. But I mean, this here is just so wildly misaligned with the lived-in reality that we have every day. I mean, we can't. I know you have to have something, and we have to do things in a planned, structured way for a variety of reasons. But this 10 years as it's proposed, I mean, is not startable, I don't think, from my perspective. So, thank you.
Rick Settle.
Thank you. Good words, Jared. My only ask is, we are a regional water supplier. 42% of all water goes to outside the city of Fort Smith. So I think our CIP should reflect that. I think you need to the CIP should be what is shared by everybody versus what is only the city of Fort Smith. Because I think that paints a different picture. Because if you think about it, let's call it 50-50. 50% of all water infrastructure, transmission lines, and treatment plants should be paid for by everybody outside the city. It shouldn't be the burden of the city of Fort Smith. The city of Fort Smith passed the sales tax to get Lake Fort Smith built. They built it. They bared more than their fair share over the last 30 or 40 years. So everybody outside the city has actually gained this. So if anything comes to us, anything at all, it should be based on a 50-50 cost share, and it should be based off of the areas that impact everybody together, and then everything inside the city. Our water tower. Now, if a water tower is going to feed Franklin County from the city of Fort Smith, then that should be factored into the Franklin County discussion. If a water tower is going to impact Arcoma, then that should be part of that also. So it's not pretty much cut and dry. Everything should be factored in those discussions, because I think the citizens of Fort Smith have actually done their fair share over and over. And so when this comes back to us in any capacity, it should be broken into those two factors.
That point is well taken.
Thank you.
And I believe there's an item in the next
Well,
couple months
I'm
to
mixing
address
5
that.
and 6 together, so I mean, to
That's
me,
fine.
I think everything's mixed together, and so that's all I'm going to say about this here. You know, I get this to Jared's point, but I think there's avenues. You know, I saw some congressional spending that's happened, and some other Northwest Arkansas is getting money, and we got some, and I'm thankful to my congressional delegation for that. But I think that there's opportunities coming. We do have the 4 military cells, so I do think maybe the 1.5 is probably correct if we do get as those new people are coming, as we start seeing new visitors coming to our city. And so if you want to change the number, it's fine, but I really think the impact is, you know, knows my thought on this, and so does most people. We should be able to charge what we want. It's our water.
Okay. Thank you. Why don't we take 10 minutes and we'll come back and complete it. Okay. You're going to track the time on that? 10
Yeah, it started at 8
minutes would be-
o'clock. Yeah.
We'll start at 8.
Our 10 minutes started at 8 o'clock.
Oh.
Ward 4. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I agree.
It doesn't just serve Chaffee Crossing.
I know.
It doesn't just serve Chaffee Crossing. That 30 miles of transmission line, it replaces 100-year-old lines that are there.
Yeah. They don't see that though, Jeff.
Those they're not going to last forever, you know?
I know.
We can't afford one day for them to blow up.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Well,
What scares me is that all of our water comes into town around the Midland Bridge, all of it. And that's the only place that comes into town is right there at the Midland
really? I didn't know that.
Yes. I mean, there's 2 lines. There's one that goes under the river, and there's one that goes on the bridge. But they both come into
I didn't
town
know that.
from basically Van Buren into Fort Smith up in that area.
I didn't know
And
that.
So that scares the engineers. It scares me because it scares them, right? And
Yeah.
so what the bigger benefit to me, if we put that line that comes in the south and comes in the southeast part of the city in the Chaffee Crossing area, it doesn't just serve Chaffee Crossing. It also makes that we've got the water fed to both ends of town.
I see.
And one goes down, the other one can supply.
Well, that's, yeah.
Right now they go. I mean, if something catastrophic happened in the area of the Midland Bridge, I mean, it'd have to be really catastrophic.
Yeah.
But it could be an earthquake, you know.
Yeah.
Because we do have a water line underground, under the river.
Right.
But I mean, that's the only place it comes in. So I mean,
Yeah.
I get the idea that why should the rest of the city? I mean,
Well,
pay
yeah.
31 miles of transmission line. Well, we're not. I mean, everybody's
Yeah.
paying for all of it. So.
Is that actually Buckley?
Yes.
She running for judge?
Yes, she is. Yep, she's a pretty sharp lady.
Yeah, she is. I think she'll give Gunner a run for his money.
Yep, she's well spoken and she's a good attorney.
I'm gonna go pee, Jeff.
Yep, all right. Pardon?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. We're going to reconvene. Thank you.
Mayor, I just had a question, if I might.
Yes.
I was just kind of wondering, since the discussions, blended together on items 5 and 6, if there are questions about item 6, or just wanted to make sure we were still diving in on that.
Okay. Why don't we just consider that, since they kind of blended together, and you may finish your presentation, and we'll.
We need those slides from Hawkins Weir.
Okay.
Yeah, that was we made note.
Okay. All right.
He's going to get those for you.
And I'm going to have those updated too, as per your requests, at a 1.14% growth rate. That'll flatten that line out a little bit, but the need is still there. And I'd like to have Jimmy, since this is still part of the master plan discussion. Jimmy, could you come in?
Sure.
He told me some critical information that I was not aware of.
So over the last 5 years, we've experienced 5 crises, and the city water system operated within a crisis mode. In the last 5 years, we've lost Lee Creek treatment plant. We've lost the Mountainburg treatment plant. We've lost the 36-inch transmission line from Mountainburg to town. We've had the purple water incident from Mountainburg. We've had this past year, we had a 20-inch line in town, transmission line, that went down. And during that time, most of our reservoirs were down to less than 30% storage. So I would like to be able to operate in a non-crisis mode. And there are some items that we can kick down the road, but phase 2, if we had phase 2, the transmission, 36-inch transmission line would have been a non-issue, because it would have had a dual feed. So I know this is a big ask, but we do operate in crisis mode very often, and if we have a drought this summer, more than likely we will have to go beyond water rationing. I mean, water conservation. We'll have to go to water rationing to cut the water use. And I could speak to more of those if you want me to, but
Jimmy,
that's where we're at.
Aren't those things that you just mentioned, losing the transmission line, losing the Lee Creek, aren't those pretty significant items in and of themselves? Like that would mean we're in crisis mode as it is. Like that is just a crisis mode. So
it is, but normally you have build some redundancy into your system. So we currently have 2 transmission lines coming across the river to Fort Smith. The youngest one is older than I am.
Right. No.
So our ability to move water across the river to the city hasn't changed in my lifetime. And those are the things we need to address. And
so we've just for everybody's benefit, we got 2 lines coming down from Mountainburg. 2 lines coming down. They come together underneath the river. Then once they cross the river, they split.
Yeah. So we have 2 from Mountainburg, 1 from Lee Creek, and they come together to a common point, and 2 lines come across the river to Arkansas and to Fort Smith. Okay. And the new 48-inch transmission line is going to come in on the east side of the town, where we have some weaknesses in our distribution system to get water to the east side of town. And there's some items in the CIP that's going to help. Well, it's going to alleviate one of the crisis problems that I know that is coming on one of our transmission lines from our Uper pump station to Wildcat Mountain. I know that's coming because every interstate crossing that it was constructed when Interstate 540 was the first phase when that was constructed, every single crossing has failed except for this one major transmission line.
and it's made out of the same material as the other lines that have already failed. So I know it's coming, and it's just a question of when it's coming.
Mr. Jimmy, how many do you have the data on the current utilities has a revenue bond to pay off? Do we, or is it paid for?
We have a current bond.
When do we know when it will be paid up?
2031.
2031.
And was there any sort of refinance option available to the city at the time, or is it pretty much you have to hold that one to 2031?
That was already refinanced.
Okay.
Once.
Is there any understanding, based on current revenues, what we still might have available to do?
On current revenues, we can do what's in 2026, assuming that we get all of our lines back, all of our refunds back from the State Highway Department for their projects.
So, and do we know when we expect to hear from that?
It's an ongoing process. We're in the process of, we just turned in an estimate for a little over $3 million this week for reimbursement from the state.
And to me also, I know you wrote this down, Mr. Todd, about the unrealized cost. If it would say it was 10% of our unrealized or unaccounted for water, if it wasn't leaking out, but it was rather just not being counted, and we conduct that study. But what I hear you saying is if we have the highway and things kick back to us as you hope, that we have the money to do 26. But you mean that as cash and pay, correct? Not as in any sort of revenue pool.
That's correct.
Revenue bond pool. Okay. And then I would be curious to think about if it was, what's that number? What kind of revenue is that captured back? Because then perhaps that's where we need to start. I'm in all for it, and I receive your spirit. I mean, the thing I'm always nervous about is the big old line breaking one day, and we're sitting here trying to figure out what to do and how to get water across the river. But I just say, like, as to the spirit of Director Rigo, it seems as if we've almost kind of had death by vision. So if we could walk back and say, instead of like a paralysis, what can we take action on that moves this ball forward? And if we can get a projection of the unaccounted water captured, if it was a certain percentage that we expect, because I think we don't want to presume that that is all just water leaked.
So our transmission line from Mountainburg has been in our master plan since 1995.
And to Director Settle's comment, though, and I would agree, is this is a win for all the region.
Yes,
so let's look at
exactly.
a way for all the region to be a part of the answer. And then let's bring up a solution that, we can talk in circles, but I would rather start talking linear. So that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, did you have any further comments?
I do not. I want to give Lance McAvoy a chance to interject with any additional data he might have, if you'd like.
Todd, I do want to add, I really would like for you to get a plan put together for us to see on that alternative leak detection options. Let's get some pricing. Let's see what that could look like.
Will do.
Thank you.
And Todd, I can actually tell you that in the current CIP, there is some money that was for watershed management that can be pulled towards that, because we did not go after grants and we do not do watershed projects where we pay for the whole thing. We always do it with a grant to extend the money. So there were not grant funds this year for that. So there is some funds there that.
Yeah, there's 300,000 in that. So that's
yeah. So, couple of things that we've talked about. Unaccounted for water right now for 2025 or 2025, about 36%. That's where we're sitting. That's where we've been sitting the last 2 years. Is 36% unaccounted for water.
Even with all these leaks fixed?
Actually, I saw so we're tracking it by month. Since October, we've actually gone up in unaccounted for water.
Even with all the leaks fixed?
Even with all the leaks fixed.
So what do you attribute that to?
How is that? Yeah.
It can be meters are going out. There could be more flushing that is occurring.
Hydrant flushing.
Hydrant flushing. Thank you. But yeah, it's gone up about 2% from what we've seen. To Jimmy's point, we are one catastrophe away from being the next West Helena or Jackson, Mississippi. The fact that over the last, since 2018, we have dodged bullets is a credit to the staff of Fort Smith, and it's a combined staff from Jimmy and the engineers that I've worked with there, the plant operators, and others. I don't mean to sound doom and gloom, but I want to be factual with all of you. When you lose a 36-inch line, and the very same day that you lose a 36-inch line, the only plant that you have left that can produce at full bore goes down because of a storm, and you can't get it back up and running really quick, and you're draining your clear well, your storage at the plant, you're looking at a system-wide boil water notice. When you have baffles fall and you can't get your plant back up and running for about 2.5 weeks at one plant, and it puts Van Buren and Cedarville, parts of them, under a boil water notice, but by the grace of God, it did not impact Fort Smith. And it, again, goes to the people that know operations, know the chemistry of the water, know how to treat it, know how to get a plant up and going. The transmission line is important, but at the same time, if you build a transmission line and you don't have a way to put more water in there, it's not going to do you're going to have an empty straw or a partially filled straw. So it's kind of the chicken or the egg when it comes to a plant and a transmission line. That's why building it in phases, and as Jimmy stated, you build phase 2, you do have some redundancy where we've had washouts before. You do have some things where we can actually, if I remember right, flow the 40 million gallons by gravity when we complete 2. That really has an impact on cost savings on what we spend on pumping during the summer and things of that nature. So I did want to kind of give you guys where we're at with unaccounted for water. Director Kemp, I fully agree with you. If we recapture 5% of that from meters, what does that look like in revenue? Well, figure, if we're producing an average of 33 million gallons, take 36% of that, and then 3 out of that, and then put that towards just the lowest rate, or lowest residential rate. That's a large amount of money over a year. So that does have a big impact.
So then I come back to, where are we with the meter conversation? And I think that needs to be brought before this board again, is what is the meter conversation and what is the next recommendation from staff? And then ultimately, I feel the weight of what you're sharing, and I appreciate you sharing it. But, this is a legislative body. Mm-hmm. Bring us something to legislate, right? What is it what is the recommendation that we can hear? Option 1, 2, or 3, and then let us think through it, and maybe all through the collective conversation. But it sounds, if I'm hearing you, it sounds like we need to talk about meters, specifically 3-inch and beyond meters.
I would say all meters, because, all meters make a difference. Yes, your 3-inch and larger will make a bigger impact right up front, but if you have a whole bunch of small ones, you're going to end up with the same amount of water going through that you're not accounting for there. I think Matt wanted to say something on meters.
Before, if I could, one more time on the meter conversation, though, because I've sat through meter conversations just from the observation point, and then also from being on the board. Is there a way to bring back, because it seems as if the techie-minded meters doesn't seem to get the support it needs, but what are the other alternatives? Show me the one that is not the techie meter, but is a well-efficient meter that's going to work for a good long time, and can we hear about that plan?
Lance, if I could get Matt to address that, please.
Thank you.
As far as our meter specifications, we rewrote those earlier, well, last year, looking at those. And so we've actually, because we had to order replacement meters just so we had stuff on hand. Matter of fact, we just got in, I think we got in 250 meters today on what we had ordered at the end of last year. It was part of our carryover, carry forward stuff. But basically we were looking at Badger AMR meters is what we were going with. And so, we feel like that's the best direction, because as far as like your standard mechanical meters, the industry has gone completely, is going away from that and is going more towards the either AMR or AMI type systems and stuff. And so we feel like with what we've got now, it's like the AMR system itself is good, but the meters that we've got are the weak point in our system. Basically, whenever we bought meters previously, several years ago, we went basically with the cheapest that was out there on the market. And so we've had tons of problems with it. We have over a 25% failure rate, just out the gate on those meters.
Matt, were those the Zinner meters?
Those are the Zinner meters,
okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
And so just for stock, for replacement, right now, that's basically what we've got in the budget. We had over $1 million in the budget last year for meters, but that's, basically that's all been kind of cut out, and we were looking at funding that more in the future, and that's all been cut out because of the whole issue with the budget cuts, and that's totally understandable. We can't be spending more than what we've got available, but that was something we were looking at doing, is replacing meters, and we can save money by replacing them in-house with staff, and we figure we can do, because we've been talking about today what we can do with staff. We can do about 10,000 meters a year with staff if we can afford to buy them, and so that's 10,000 meters.
Well, there's 36,000 meters in households in Fort Smith.
We've got around 40,000 meters in
40,000.
Yeah, I think just
so
under
a four-year project.
Yes.
What's the cost of those meters?
So it would run us, based on what we've just paid on these others, I believe it cost us, that'd be about $2.6 million a year, doing about 10,000 a year.
I think didn't we talk about $40 million for thing meters?
There was
but that's an installed price with. I'm sorry, Jeff.
Yeah, and that was with a range. There was, like Matt was starting to say, that's an installed price, but the range given was $25 to $45 million based on the type of meter that we purchased and the type of electronics we purchased to go on.
Those were the AMI meters.
Well, yes, sure, but in like what Matt's saying, if we selected the meters that they've chosen, what 200? How much per meter?
About 260 a piece.
Right. So you're saying 2.6 million a year for 4 years?
Yes.
So we go to 10.4 million versus
48. Just to be safe, let's bump that up a little bit for inflation and say 11. Yeah.
Okay.
And then we don't have to pay cloud storage with these, do we?
Pay what? I'm sorry.
Like cloud storage and things like that, like you do with the AMI?
No, it's AMR. It'd be the same thing we're doing now with our AMR
Because I know with the AMI there were a lot of hidden costs.
We would still have costs associated with the software and everything, but I'm trying to think if there's any cloud storage. I'd have to ask IT about it.
Significantly better than the answer.
Well, not like that. It's not as significantly better. It's what's the probability of installing those meters and they already recoup their cost in 1 year?
And they recoup their cost in 1 year?
I'm just saying, like,
basically you get $2.6 million more dollars in revenue because they're
it's hard to say because we've got currently, if you think about it, we've currently got a quarter of our meters that are failing regularly. Once we get the Zenners in that are, and we're not buying new Zenners. It's not that, but once we, those that we send out for warranty and everything, we get them back, and about a fourth of them, about 1 every 4 is failing when we test it on the bench when we get it back.
The centimeters had not recouped their costs, was my understanding, that the board, before I was on, spent about $6 million on those and had not recouped their costs on the centimeters. Would that be accurate?
I honestly, I cannot.
I know it's
answer
been a
that,
while
so-
since we've had this
Yeah.
discussion.
Let's go back to, I think, Director Rigo and then Director Settle.
Oh, I mean, I just want to say really quickly, like the sooner I mean, it's no offense meant to anybody, but like the way that item 6 is kind of presented is uniquely unsuitable for, finding a solution. I mean, you talk about $382 million, possible funding sources for unfunded projects could include rate increases, impact fees, incorporation of surcharge mechanism. I mean, we need some stuff to digest. I mean, we need to see like what does it actually look like to fund these things through these sorts of mechanisms that have been contemplated. I mean, because you can't make a decision if you don't even begin to understand the way forward on the number. I mean, I think also as well, when you talk about hey, we're one calamity away from a Jackson, Mississippi type situation, the only two responses to that can't be, well, keep kind of scraping along, doing what we're doing, or, approve the $382 million unfunded CIP plan. I mean, there needs to be, I said it before the break, I'll say it again, things that chunk this down into more manageable and understandable components. I mean, if you just look at what's in front of us here, and again, this failed, so I know this is not going to be what this is going to be, but you can't say we're setting aside $2.4 million to spend this year, and next year we should set aside $53.7 million to spend. What does that delta represent? Is there $51 million more dollars of urgency next year versus this year? And if so, that needs to be explained a little better. And we just need to begin the process of breaking this down into manageable approaches, because even if you emptied out broke all the rules and emptied out all our fund balances across the 4 buckets to the tune of $65+ million, that wouldn't even get you to the end of the decade on this unfunded plan that's in front of us. So we need to do something different, obviously. And so I would like to see some more specifics in smaller increments to at least begin considering.
Settle.
Just to answer Director Kim's question, we do have bonds outstanding that were issued in 2015, 2016, and 2018. And typically you can't refinance those bonds until it hits 10 years. So then typically those bonds are a 20 or 30-year bond, whatever we decide at that point. So I think most of these are sewer projects, if I'm right, Lance?
It's a mixture of
Water and sewer, but yeah. So typically most of the money is typically already been spent. But there doesn't say but you got to remember in 2015, 2016, 2018, whatever the interest rates were then, if you go to today's interest rates will be higher, so you might gain some capital, you might not. So it just depends where you're at.
Okay. Director Savage.
So just to ask Director Rigo, is what I'm hearing you say is that you might entertain a look at this alternative leak detection to.
I got no problems with detecting leaks however we detect them. We're not going to solve this challenge alone, and I know we all know this, on the back of unrecovered water. And it's an important arrow in the quiver, and we should do everything we can to recover the water that should be appropriately charged for. But I think there's going to be other arrows from the quiver fired at the target.
I for one, I take your comments to heart and I weigh them against. I think for one thing, I think this list, the CIP list, illustrates the magnitude of projects that at least that we have contemplated are necessary for the system. But to your point, Director Rigo, in terms of how to use your term, chunk them together into manageable items, I look to the comments that Jimmy Johnson made. In terms of and as a layperson myself, when it comes to listening to these guys talk about how the system works, I understand that the direction of backfilling the city, for lack of a better word, from the southeast with a water connection solves a lot of issues, or at least relieves a lot of pressures to where that particular type of project elevates up to the top of those chunks that we need to try to solve. And so, yeah. I mean, from that perspective, I take those to heart.
Well, thank you. I
see how we can organize that.
I just think it's about finding ways to eat the elephant, because clearly it was mentioned earlier that having this additional transmission line capacity has been on CIP lists since 1995.
Yes.
That did not lead to it being constructed.
Right.
So, maybe a different, more priority-based approach.
Well, I think, too, with this leak detection, it's not just recapturing that water, but it's the capacity. I mean, that we potentially could get 500,000, 1 million gallons a day capacity, maybe 1.5. I don't know. We'd have to see. But that buys us a little time to figure some of these things out.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on item 5 or 6? Did you have anything further?
Yeah, I have a presentation prepared for item 6.
Okay, go right ahead.
I can abbreviate it if you like.
Yes.
But I think yes, and some introductory comments, but looks like, where did that go?
Yeah.
I think we need to move on to citizens forum. I think everybody's been waiting quite a while.
Okay, sounds good.
That's null and void.
Okay.
I appreciate your time, Todd. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go to the citizens forum.
First, we have Andy Postrick.
Hey, thanks for having me. Andy Postrick, Fort Smith. I love living in Fort Smith, and I don't have anything to complain about tonight. I just wanted to give some positive feedback on some things that I've seen in the city, both in the recent and in the long term. So, first one is just I love the small town feel that we have. I can't go to the farmers market without running into somebody that I know. One thing that happened recently that I was kind of interested in is my wife's coworker is a professional wrestler, and we went to go see him wrestling, and while we were there, we ran into my veterinarian at a wrestling event, and that was weird. And then just tonight, my lawyer is here unexpectedly. Wasn't planning to bump into her, so that was great. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, which is on the agenda tonight, so I apologize, but the water leaks are way down, and that's something that the citizens are very sensitive to. As you recall from a year or two ago, some of you may have ran on this platform of getting the leaks down, and I feel like that's been achieved, and everybody who participated in that deserves a lot of praise. So I just wanted to thank the city for that. Another thing that happened is solid waste had a cost of service study, and everybody's very, very concerned about their water sewer bill, which also contains that solid waste portion that doesn't get as much attention. But you guys passed a gate fee increase, which sounds bad, but the alternative would have been $7 a month on everybody's water bills. And so the citizens don't know that you did that you saved them $7 a month, but they would have been pretty mad if you didn't take that step. So I appreciate that.
It also allowed us, the folks that use our landfill from outside of Fort Smith to get charged.
Exactly, yes. And they contribute a whole lot of solid waste in our landfill. So I appreciated that. I don't remember how the vote went, but I'm glad it went the way that it did. And then last one, on Tuesday of last week, some small business owners came up, and I just wanted to express how appreciative I am about Fort Smith and the small business culture that we have and the support that we give to our small businesses. And by support, I mean, us residents, we are proud. We love shopping at our small businesses. And one that I just sort of discovered, they've been here for a while, is the Bakehouse down here at Brunswick Place. I just thought that they did like cheesecake and stuff, but we went in there and they have sausage rolls and then these little meat pies, and they're amazing. It took me completely by surprise. So anything that we can do to attract new small businesses, make it easier for somebody to start a small business here, I'm for it. And that's all I have for you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Next, we have Lisa Williams. Glenn Forte.
Good evening, folks. Not too happy the way I've been treated at the police department in the month of January. I will. Give me a minute.
Boy. Yeah, well, I'll
I'm
be your
pissed.
I mean, you need a
I
bodyguard.
am pissed the way.
I want everybody to be able to hear.
Well, I want you to hear it. I'm pissed the way I was treated.
Let's hear it. Point of order.
I went to the police station in January. I don't have the date with me, but I'm sure the camera has my picture because I'm so ugly, I've been told. But I tried to deal with my director when this problem started over a stolen vehicle that was at a repair shop. I not only had one vehicle at the repair shop, for the record, I had 3. So why would you try and bull somebody and say the landlord wants it out because of the appearance? Well, it so happens the phone records and everything are coming from the person that did the paperwork, which is in my phone. I don't need to go through it now. My attorney's going to handle it when I get the time. I've been out of town to go see my brother, Joey McCutcheon. And there's several issues here. And my director, Rico, wouldn't give me the time of day. But I have a gentleman by the name of Lee Kemp. I'd like you to stand. Phenomenal service. I'll take care of it, Glenn. He's got the owner admitting he stole a 42-year-old vehicle, and it's in my telephone from Lee Kemp, if you will, with him texting it to me. The owner wants you to come down here, Glenn. After he sent me a threatening letter in the mail, certified return, I have your vehicle, $65 a day. 10 days go by, I get another notice. We're having an auction. You don't own the vehicle anymore. So I go over to the auction. I bring a friend with me. He's elderly like me. He goes and bids on it. We go back at 4:30, see the owner open up the bid. Also, if I will, for the record, the owner's a Christopher Delopoulos, 60 years old approximately. Excuse me. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I have trouble with a dry mouth, and I got a bad cough. Thank you. And I go down there, and I say to him, after the bid, he says, yeah, it's $5,000 that's owed. How do you get $5,000 at $65 a day? This was in December, the auction was. So I says to the owner, I don't want to talk my business in here. Let's step outside. I says, you don't know who I am. I'm the rightful owner. I grew up with the mob in Boston, Irish Mafia. My best friend, a big towing company. I know how the crookedness works. No one's going to pick up a vehicle being in the towing business after 30-odd plus years that has no value to it. Then he's trying to extort money from me, and I can show you people in the phone. My director here, brother Lee Kemp, out of his heart, went and served me and took care of business. He got the owner to admit, yeah, it's a bad deal. The guy in the garage put me up to it. I'm going after his business license, and I want to see all these people go to jail. They jacked me and thought they were taking a tourist down. Well, I got news for you. Now we got a problem with the detectives. There's 2 of them. One is my house got broken into in October. I had people putting siding on it. And then in December, it might be November, I believe it's December of 25, I did a stolen report on a scooter. So the cop tells me today at the police station on the phone, because I called the chief secretary, the chief won't ever talk to me. I've never talked to him to this day. It's his job to talk to the residents. End of story. I talked to Shirley, I believe it is, and she says, I'll have someone get on it, and I'll have internal affairs get a hold of you. It's not about internal affairs. I went to the police station to talk to the prosecutor one day in January, Colton Page. I went in one set of doors. There's 2 sets of doors. I'm standing between 2 sets of doors, and there's a civilian like me. He says, hey, guy, you can't go in. I says, why? It's after 8 o'clock. He says, oh, they changed the hours. No one ever informed me as a city resident. So there's an officer in the room there coming to the door with a 5-gallon pail his prisoner or probation guy has and a stick to pick up butts and trash. So he says to him, "Can I use the men's room?" "RF you," locked the door, wouldn't let me use it. I peed my pants. I have a medical issue and I will bring paperwork to show you people.
Mayor McGill,
I'm
5
tired of being
minutes.
treated like an animal in this city, and you can see where the city administrator went. I'll talk to the new city administrator for the record.
Thank you very much. I think your 5 minutes is up, sir. And we appreciate you being here.
Next, we have Kristen Kitchens.
Hey guys, how are you guys? I've just moved back to town. You know what the great thing about moving back to town is? You get to pick where you want to live. And so guess what? I picked Subbasin P006. It's right near the flood zone where I started helping with those people with the buyout. And issues weren't getting fixed. And so, you know, my first day there, I decided, hey, I'm going to put a GIS map out, and I'm going to go walk the neighborhood. So let's talk about some issues in the neighborhood. I've only made it on my street. I've got one manhole, P008, 1470. It's been replaced twice in 2 years. And you want to see how bad it looks? Because it sure doesn't look like it's up to the standards of what our consent decree is at, right? And I've FOIA'd some information. And I would also like to ask where the 1713 item number is, where it was approved with the city, with Hawkins and Ware for the sub-basin drawing, because I can't find it anywhere. I haven't really seen a great drawing for that basin anywhere in our city packets or anything to that nature. And also, at the end of our year's consent decrees, that's the only one, like, in the whole area that hasn't been done. But we're doing all these other outlining areas, and that's one of our major areas. So I'm kind of concerned on, like, you know, what we're doing for, you know, like to make sure that that basin 10, 12, and 14 are being done right, because those are our major ones within the consent decree that weren't done to begin with. But, and the GIS map, of course, is still, they're not correct.
Okay.
So basically, they're not showing if the work's been done, how old the manhole is, or some of them are saying they're consent decree ready and they're not. And they don't match the reports that I FOIA'd on all the manholes for P008.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, we have Crystal Cadelli.
Thank you.
Good evening. I want to start tonight by addressing the contract agreement conversation that was had earlier. I think that anyone in business should know the importance of having a contract or an agreement for a service provider, a construction project, or any large acquisition. This provides protection for both the seller and the buyer, and it sets expectations. I think that anything otherwise just could potentially lead to loss of revenue or, you know, legal fees for not completing the job as proposed. Unfortunately, in this day and time, a handshake just doesn't cut it in business. Time and time again, I sit out in the audience dumbfounded at the lack of care and the poor business practices of certain members of this board. The city, as we talked about tonight, is currently facing an exorbitant amount of infrastructure needs, somewhere in the ballpark of $1 billion, married with over 30% of failing water meters, which is nothing new, something that was brought up at least a year ago. Which is causing billing issues and water leaks. This board should be focusing on these two items at every study session until there is a plan on how we are going to fund them and the timeline of completion and then there should be follow-up on the completion of the items. Instead, this board focuses on finding ways to waste our money and land us in numerous lawsuits, either by private citizens or the federal government. The inefficiencies of this board and administration has led the city to move backwards instead of growing, and we can see this in the loss of tax revenue. The citizens have lost confidence in this city government, and we don't need another park at Acme Brick. We need to add a 13th detainage pond. We already own 12 in the city, and sell the rest of the land to pay for the infrastructure projects. We also own 26 residential properties from 2022 to present due to drainage issues. What's going to happen to those properties? They're just going to dilapidate and be an eyesore for the city. We should fix the drainage and sell those as well. We look at our budget as being healthy, but the truth of the matter is we're not healthy at all. We are in debt. And instead of building more parks and buying slides, we need to start putting the money towards our infrastructure and make it enticing for people to want to live here and move here. There are hundreds of citizens that are getting their water turned off on a monthly basis, yet Parrot Island can go 19 months paying less than a single person household. Please spare the people with the surveys and twisting it into what the residents want. A survey of 50, 200, 1,000 people only equal 0.0005% to 0.01% of the city's population. I know this is going to be harsh, but I do feel like it needs to be said. Mr. Rigo, Mr. Settle, Mr. Good, and Mr. Kemp, your actions on this board have clearly shown a lack of commitment to serving the citizens of Fort Smith, and it appears that our best interests are no longer your priorities. It is my hope the 2026 and 2028 elections will bring the change to this board the Fort Smith citizens need and to make the city thrive again. Thank you.
Next we have Chris Cadelli.
Good evening. I'm still trying to wrap my head around all the Parrot Island water park issues. As a concerned citizen, I'd like to express my opposition to the continued reckless spending on the water slide addition and the no bid contract recently approved in a 4-3 board vote. I'm concerned this no bid contract was awarded to a company. Jeff Dingman said at the January 20th meeting, the company decided not to bid in the open bid process last October because they weren't qualified aquatics. They weren't a qualified aquatics contractor. What changed between the open bid process and the no bid award to make the contractor feel qualified? Was it merely Director Lee Kemp's direct involvement and consulting with the contractor that brought about the newfound qualification? Do board directors typically consult with contractors prior to or during a bid process? Director Kevin Settle expressed serious concern about potential litigation over bidding irregularities during the alley rehab bid process, so I can't help but wonder why he supported this no bid award on the slide addition. I firmly believe the numerous issues surrounding Parrot Island Water Park will continue to haunt the city throughout 2026 and beyond. I'm sure there's going to be further requests for monies to complete that project. And then lastly, I would just ask if the board could provide the citizens with updates on the national search for a new city administrator. Thank you.
And last, we have Dan Williams.
Good evening. I'd like to say I really appreciate the water department getting these leaks fixed. Originally, that's how I started coming to the meeting, and I was told, once I left, I probably wouldn't be back, and that was kind of through the whole water slide thing. But I'm still here, Director Good. I'm still here thanks to you because you challenged me that night. And, it's really interesting when I come here because there's so many attitudes, and it seems like y'all have something against doing your job and holding people accountable. But I heard out of this side over here, I wasn't sure if it was Rigo or you, Mr. Good, that y'all said that y'all may have made a mistake. Well, I assure you, you did make a mistake by going forth with that. And really, that's all people want is for you to stand up and say, I made a mistake. And then maybe someone like Kemp could come in and get the things worked out and everybody could be happy and we could move on. But you know what? Y'all won't do that. And because you won't do it, it's caused more problems. And I think it's interesting that, I got a phone call from a resident, over an hour conversation about a director that's no longer on this board, just, some time back. And that person was telling me that person thinks he runs the city and still communicates to the board, and he's in charge of things and he's doing things. I'm like, no way, And then I come in here and I'm in a meeting, it's in the other room in there, and he's sitting right in front of me. And there was a conflict from Miss Christina here, and he had gotten up and shared something, and then next thing you know, he pulled out the phone and he texted, as I was sitting there, Mr. Good, right there from his phone, call me back up to the microphone. And you know what? You played it off for a long time, and then you said, I'd like to call Mr. LaVon Morton back up there to the microphone. And I thought, isn't that interesting? That person, it's not a happenstance. That person called and told me that for an hour on the phone. I'm thinking, this can't be for real. Okay? Whatever y'all have going on is being found out. Okay? I'm just letting you know. And you can keep playing your games if you want to. But I'm thankful that this lady right here is taking a stand. Okay? I'm thankful for it. And I'm thankful for that smirk you have right there. Because guess what? You did make a wrong decision. You hadn't owned up to it yet. But we all know you did it. And you won't be able to run from that bad decision. Because it will haunt you. I believe Chris got it right. It's going to keep coming back. It's going to keep coming back. Because when you do things the way they're not supposed to be done and you don't admit it to it, eventually it's going to get you. And this one will. Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you very much. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.